They laughed at the janitor's car, called it scrap metal, a piece of junk rotting in the executive parking lot. Those men in their $1,000 suits had no idea they were standing inches away from technology worth billions, innovation their own company had rejected years ago. The quiet man pushing the mop cart said nothing. He never did. But today, his 10-year-old son had other plans. One lifted hood, one moment of revelation, and the entire hierarchy of power was about to flip upside down. Because sometimes, the person you see least clearly is the one who sees everything. Want to know how a single father janitor brought a tech empire to its knees? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the lobby of Arcadia Tech Solutions flickered at 5:47 a.m., same as they did every morning. Caleb Hayes noticed because he'd been the one mopping this floor for 3 years straight, 5 days a week, and those lights had been dying that whole time. Maintenance never fixed them. Why would they? The people who mattered didn't arrive until 9. He wrung out the mop head, watching dirty water spiral down the drain. His hands were calloused, scarred in places from old burns, remnants of a different life he didn't talk about. The building was quiet. That's why he preferred the early shift. No one around to look through him like he was furniture. "Dad, can I come today?" Caleb glanced at his son, Evan, who sat cross-legged near the reception desk. Homework spread around him like a paper explosion. The kid was supposed to be working on fractions. Instead, he had a mechanical pencil disassembled, parts lined up with the precision of a surgeon. "School starts in 2 hours," Caleb said. "I'm basically done." Evan held up his math worksheet. Half the problems were blank. Basically isn't done. But I already know how to do them. It's boring. Caleb couldn't argue with that. The kid had been doing algebra in his head since he was 7. The school didn't know what to do with him, so they just kept giving him the same worksheets as everyone else. Evan had stopped complaining about it a year ago, which worried Caleb more than the complaining ever had. "Finish them anyway," Caleb said. "Rules are rules." Evan made a face but picked up his pencil. Not the mechanical one he'd been dissecting, that was still in pieces. A regular number 2. He scribbled answers with the enthusiasm of someone copying the dictionary. Caleb moved to the windows, spraying glass cleaner in practice strokes. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for 2 cars. His 1973 Dodge Challenger, primer gray and rust-spotted, sat in the far corner where he always left it. Next to it, looking like it had been airlifted from another planet, was Marcus Chen's Tesla Model S. Marcus was VP of Engineering, arrived early, left late, and had never once made eye contact with Caleb. The Challenger had been with Caleb longer than Evan had been alive. Bought it for $800 from a junkyard in Ohio, back when he still thought he'd fix it up as a hobby. That was before everything fell apart, before Sarah got sick, before single fatherhood became his entire universe. The car should have been sold years ago. Everyone said so. Even Evan used to ask why they kept it when it barely ran, when they could use the space, when it cost money just sitting there. Caleb had never given a good answer, just said he'd get around to dealing with it eventually. "Mr. Hayes?" Caleb turned. Building security, a guy named Tom, who was actually decent, stood near the elevator. "Morning, Tom. Got a heads up for you. Big meeting today. Board of directors, some investors from California. They're doing a walkthrough at 8. Appreciated." Tom nodded and headed back to his desk. Caleb checked his watch. That gave him about an hour to make sure the executive floor was spotless. The top brass didn't care about clean floors most days, but when money people showed up, suddenly every fingerprint was a crisis. "Come on, Evan, executive level." Evan stuffed his homework into his backpack, parts of the mechanical pencil going into his pocket. They rode the elevator to the 15th floor in silence. Evan pressed his forehead against the glass wall, watching the lobby shrink below them. "You think those investors are rich?" Evan asked. "Probably." "Like how rich?" "Rich enough they don't think about money." Evan processed this. "That's weird." "Yeah." The executive floor smelled like expensive coffee and leather. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Downtown Seattle, all glass and ambition. Caleb's cart squeaked as he pushed it across marble floors. Real marble, not tile. The company had spent $14 million on this renovation last year. He knew because he'd overheard the architects arguing about it while he emptied their trash cans. Evan wandered to the windows while Caleb worked. The kid was good about staying quiet, staying out of the way. He'd learned early that the invisible life was easier. By 7:30, the floor was immaculate. Caleb was finishing the break room when he heard voices. Too early. The meeting wasn't supposed to start until 8. Absolutely stunning views. This entire floor was redesigned last year by Morrison and Associates. That was Victoria Stevens, CEO. Caleb recognized her voice, bright and sharp like cut crystal. Very impressive, Victoria. But let's talk numbers. Your Q3 projections are ambitious. Caleb didn't recognize that voice. California accent, flat vowels. He glanced at Evan, who'd frozen near the windows. Caleb motioned him over, quietly. They could slip out through the service corridor if they moved now. They almost made it. Excuse me, Victoria's voice not bright anymore. This area is closed for our meeting. Caleb turned. Victoria stood with 3 men in suits that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She was looking at him the way you'd look at a waiter who'd appeared at the wrong table. Just finishing up, ma'am, Caleb said. Well, finish quickly. We have important guests. One of the suits, a guy with silver hair and a watch that caught the light, glanced at Evan. Bring your kid to work day? Something like that, Caleb said. How progressive. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Caleb grabbed his cart. Evan followed, quick and quiet. They were almost to the elevator when another voice cut through. Jesus, did you see that car in the parking lot? Caleb's hand paused on the elevator button. The Challenger? Different voice. Younger. I saw it. Absolute piece of shit. Who drives something like that to a place like this? Probably maintenance. You know how those guys are. Laughter. Easy, casual. The laughter of people who'd never had to choose between fixing a car and feeding a kid. The elevator doors opened. Caleb stepped in. Evan was staring at him, face flushed. Dad, not now! The doors closed. They rode down in silence. Evan's hands were balled into fists, jaw tight in a way that reminded Caleb of Sarah. She used to get that same look when someone said something stupid, right before she'd verbally dismantle them with surgical precision. They don't know what they're talking about, Evan said. Doesn't matter. It does matter. That car, I said, not now. Evan went quiet, but it was the loud kind of quiet. The kind that meant he was thinking, planning, plotting whatever 10-year-olds plotted when they decided adults were being idiots. The morning shift passed. Caleb worked through the lower floors, bathrooms, conference rooms, the cafeteria that wouldn't open until lunch. Evan did homework in whatever room Caleb was cleaning, occasionally asking questions that had nothing to do with school. How much horsepower does a hybrid system add? Depends on the design. But theoretically, if you optimize the electric motors for torque and the combustion engine for sustained power, Evan, I'm just asking. Ask about fractions. I hate fractions. I know. By noon, Caleb's shift was done. They headed to the parking lot. The executive meeting had apparently moved outside because now there was a whole crowd gathered near the cars. Victoria, the California investors, Marcus Chen from engineering, a handful of other executives Caleb recognized by sight, if not by name. And they were standing around his car. Restoration project, maybe? Someone was saying. Restoration implies someone's actually working on it, Marcus said. This thing's been sitting here for years. Might be worth something to a collector, one of the investors said, walking around the Challenger. If it ran, if it wasn't rusted through, if someone competent got their hands on it. More laughter. Evan's hand found Caleb's, squeezed hard. Dad, please. Leave it alone. They're wrong. You know they're wrong. It doesn't matter what they think. Yes, it does, Evan's voice cracked. You made something amazing and they're treating it like trash and you're just letting them. The crowd had noticed them now. Victoria's smile had that practiced quality, the one executives wore when dealing with inconveniences. Mr. Hayes, is this your vehicle? Every eye turned to him. Caleb felt the weight of it, that specific kind of attention that came when you were suddenly visible to people who'd prefer you weren't. Yes, ma'am. It's been brought to my attention that it might be a liability, aesthetically speaking. Victoria's tone was pleasant, but her meaning was clear. Perhaps it's time to consider alternative transportation? One of the investors stepped forward. Raymond Hollis, according to the name tag on his visitor badge. He had the look of someone who'd made his fortune young and never let anyone forget it. "I'm sure Mr. Hayes is doing his best," Raymond said, voice dripping with condescension. "But maybe we could help him out. Company car program or something. Can't have this," he gestured at the challenger, representing Arcadia's image. Marcus Chen was trying not to laugh, failing. "It's certainly unique," Victoria said diplomatically. "It's junk," Raymond said flatly. "No offense, buddy, but that thing's worthless. Probably worth more in scrap than it is on wheels." Caleb said nothing. He'd learned a long time ago that defending yourself to people who'd already made up their minds was a waste of breath, but Evan hadn't learned that yet. "You're wrong," Evan said. The crowd went quiet. Raymond looked down, seeming to notice Evan for the first time. "What's that, kid?" "You're wrong about the car. It's not junk. It's not worthless." Evan's voice was steady, but his hand was still gripping Caleb's. "You're all wrong." "Evan," Caleb said quietly. "Son, I appreciate your loyalty," Raymond said, amused, "but trust me, I know cars. That's a '73 Challenger, am I right? Even in pristine condition, which this clearly isn't, it's maybe a $15,000 vehicle. And this one?" He tapped the hood. "This one's maybe worth the metal it's made of. $2,000 if you're lucky." "Dad, show them." "No." "Show them." "I said no." Evan looked up at him, eyes bright with frustration and something else. Something that looked like betrayal. Then, before Caleb could stop him, Evan walked to the front of the car and popped the hood. "Evan, don't!" But it was too late. The hood lifted and the engine was exposed. For a moment, nobody spoke, because what sat under that hood wasn't some rebuilt V8 from a vintage muscle car. It wasn't a standard engine block with a few modifications. It wasn't anything any of them had expected. It was a work of art. Custom hybrid system, dual electric motors integrated with a modified combustion engine. Regenerative systems wound through the frame like mechanical nervous systems. Hand-fabricated components, precision-tooled parts, computer-controlled interfaces integrated so seamlessly they looked like they'd been born there. Wiring harnesses color-coded and labeled, every connection deliberate, every piece serving multiple functions. And in the center, mounted on a custom bracket, was a control unit that made Marcus Chen's face go white. "What the hell is that?" Raymond said, but his voice had changed. The amusement was gone. Marcus pushed forward, staring at the engine like he'd seen a ghost. His hands hovered over the components, not quite touching. "This isn't possible," Marcus whispered. "What?" Victoria moved closer. "What is it?" "This is..." Marcus looked up at Caleb, eyes wide. "This is a Nexus 7 integration system." "A what?" Raymond said. "Nexus 7. It's a theoretical hybrid architecture. The patent applications have been floating around the industry for years, but nobody's been able to build a working prototype. The engineering challenges are insane. Heat management alone would require..." He stopped, looking back at the engine. "How did you do this?" Caleb said nothing. Evan stepped forward. "He built it. From scratch. Took him 4 years." Marcus was shaking his head. "That's not possible. A system like this requires advanced materials engineering, computer integration, thermal dynamics. You'd need a team of specialists in a multi-million-dollar lab just to attempt this." "He did it in our garage," Evan said proudly. "At night, after work." Victoria was staring at the engine now, something shifting in her expression. "Marcus, are you saying this actually works?" "I'm saying if this actually works, we're looking at the most significant automotive innovation in the last 20 years. Marcus pointed to the control unit. "That architecture there? Prometheus Industries has been trying to develop that exact system. They've got 50 engineers on it and a $100 million R&D budget, and they still haven't cracked it." Raymond stepped closer, and his whole demeanor had changed. The condescension was gone. He was looking at the engine the way people looked at original Picassos. "Who designed this?" he asked quietly. Evan looked at his father. "He did." Every eye turned to Caleb. Victoria's mouth had opened slightly. "Mr. Hayes, did you build this?" Caleb wanted to close the hood, get in the car, drive away. But Evan was looking at him with those eyes, the ones that said, "Please, Dad," Just this once. Let them see you. Yes, Caleb said. The parking lot had gone dead silent. Raymond was walking around the car now, looking at it with completely different eyes. The bodywork, the rust, the primer, it's camouflage. You made it look like shit on purpose. It wasn't a question, but Caleb answered anyway. Seemed safer. Safer than what? Caleb didn't answer that. Marcus was pulling out his phone, taking pictures of the engine. Victoria, we need to get our engineers down here right now. If this system is functional, it's functional, Evan said. We drove it here this morning. Jesus Christ, someone muttered. Raymond was staring at Caleb now with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. Who are you? Really? Before Caleb could answer, Marcus spoke up. Wait, Hayes. Caleb Hayes. His face went even paler. Oh my God. You're that Hayes. You worked for Titan Automotive. You were part of the Prometheus project before it went corporate. Victoria's head snapped around. What? About 12 years ago, Titan had a small team working on next-generation hybrid systems. They were years ahead of the industry. Then Prometheus bought them out, buried the research, and scattered the team. Marcus was staring at Caleb like he was a myth made flesh. You were one of the lead engineers. You disappeared after the acquisition. I left, Caleb said simply. Left? Marcus laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You walked away from a $20 million buyout. Industry legend. People thought you were crazy. They were probably right. Raymond was putting pieces together now. So you've been working here as a janitor while sitting on technology worth... He looked at the engine again. What would you say, Marcus? Ballpark? Marcus didn't hesitate. If this system works the way I think it does, properly patented and commercialized, we're talking billions. With a B. The silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't shock. This was the sound of powerful people recalculating everything they thought they knew. Victoria found her voice first. Mr. Hayes, I think we need to have a conversation, a real one. No, Caleb said. Excuse me? I appreciate the interest, but no. Caleb gently pushed the hood down, latching it. We need to get going. Dad, Evan started. Now, Evan. Mr. Hayes, please. Raymond stepped forward. I understand this might be overwhelming, but what you've created here could change the entire automotive industry. You can't just walk away. I can, and I am. Caleb opened the driver's door. Come on, son. Evan climbed in, but he was practically vibrating with frustration. Victoria moved to block the car. Mr. Hayes, Caleb, may I call you Caleb? What would it take for you to at least discuss this? Name your price. Caleb started the engine. It purred to life, smooth and quiet in a way that made several executives' eyes widen. Electric hybrid systems weren't supposed to sound like that, weren't supposed to run that clean. There's no price, Caleb said through the open window. Have a good day, ma'am. He put the car in reverse. Victoria stepped aside, but Raymond called out. We'll find you. This conversation isn't over. Caleb drove out of the parking lot, leaving a crowd of stunned executives in his wake. They made it 3 blocks before Evan exploded. Dad, what are you doing? Driving. They wanted to talk. They said billions. That money could change everything. I know what they said. Then why did you leave? Caleb pulled into a parking lot, put the car in park, and turned to his son. Evan's face was flushed, eyes bright with anger and confusion. Listen to me, Caleb said quietly. Those people don't care about the technology. They care about what they can do with it, how they can use it, how they can own it. So, you made it. You should get paid for it. It's not about the money. It's always about money. We could have a better place. I could go to a better school. You could stop working nights and what? Caleb's voice was sharper than he intended. Become someone else? Go back to that life? What's wrong with that life? You were an engineer. You were important. I am important. To you. That's what matters. As Evan slumped in his seat, arms crossed. You're afraid. The words hit harder than Caleb expected. What? You're afraid to go back, afraid to show people what you can do. You'd rather hide and be a janitor than take a chance. That's not fair. It's true, though. Caleb wanted to argue, but the words stuck in his throat. Because maybe Evan was right. Maybe he was afraid. Afraid of what happened when you built something amazing and then watched other people take it, twist it, use it for purposes you never intended. Afraid of losing control again. Afraid of caring about something beyond his son and having it ripped away. I built that engine for us, Caleb said finally. Not for them, not for money, for you. So you'd know that you can create something meaningful without needing permission or validation from people who think they're better than you. But they'd have to give you credit now. They saw it. They know it's yours. Credit doesn't protect ownership, and ownership doesn't guarantee they'll use it the way it should be used. Caleb put the car back in drive. Let it go, Evan. Please. Evan didn't respond. Just stared out the window, jaw set in that stubborn way that meant he wasn't letting anything go. They drove home in silence. Their apartment was in a complex that had been nice in the 1980s and had been declining steadily ever since. 3rd floor, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen barely big enough for one person. But the rent was manageable, the neighbors minded their own business, and it was theirs. Caleb made lunch while Evan did homework at the kitchen table, or pretended to. Mostly he was sketching in the margins of his notebook, complex mechanical drawings that would have impressed most engineering students. You know they're going to come find you, Evan said without looking up. Maybe. Definitely. That Raymond guy looked obsessed. Rich people get obsessed with things they can't have. So what are you going to do? Nothing. Hope they lose interest. Evan finally looked up. That's not going to happen. You know that, right? Caleb did know that. He'd known it the moment Evan popped that hood. The genie was out, and there was no putting it back. His phone rang. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Same number. Might be important, Evan said. Caleb answered. Hello? Mr. Hayes, this is Raymond Hollis. We met this morning. I remember. I was hoping we could talk. Really talk. Not in a parking lot, not with an audience. Just you and me. There's nothing to talk about. Please. Give me 1 hour. I'll come to you wherever you want. One conversation. If you still want me to leave you alone after that, I will. You have my word. Caleb almost laughed. The word of a venture capitalist wasn't worth much in his experience. But something in Raymond's voice sounded different from this morning. Less performative, more genuine. 1 hour, Caleb said. There's a coffee shop on Madison, corner of 5th. Meet me there at 3. I'll be there. Thank you. Caleb hung up. Evan was watching him with an expression Caleb couldn't quite read. You're going to meet him? One conversation. That's it. Can I come? School. It's Saturday, Dad. Right. Caleb had lost track of days. Then yes, but you stay quiet and let me handle it. I'm always quiet. You popped the hood on my car in front of a dozen people. That was strategic visibility, Evan said seriously. Completely different. Despite everything, Caleb smiled. Get your shoes on. The coffee shop was called The Grind, which Caleb had always thought was either honest or depressing depending on your mood. It was mostly empty at 3 on a Saturday, just a couple of college students with laptops and a guy reading a newspaper like it was still 2005. Raymond was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 untouched cups of coffee. He'd changed out of his suit into jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than Caleb's monthly salary, but at least looked human. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. Raymond stood, offered his hand. Caleb shook it. This is my son, Evan, the young man who staged the big reveal. Pleasure. Raymond shook Evan's hand seriously, like he was an adult worth respecting. Please, sit. They sat. Raymond pushed 1 coffee toward Caleb. Black, no sugar. Took a guess. Good guess. I used to work construction before I got into venture capital. Man who does real work usually drinks real coffee. Raymond smiled, but it was self-deprecating. Sorry about this morning. The whole parking lot circus. I was performing for the other investors, and I was an asshole. No excuse, but there's context. Okay, Caleb said, waiting. I want to be straight with you. I've spent the last 6 hours researching you. Caleb Michael Hayes, born in Ohio, mechanical engineering degree from Penn State, recruited by Titan Automotive right out of school. Worked on the Prometheus hybrid project for 3 years before the company was acquired. Walked away from a payout that would have set you up for life. Raymond paused. Your wife passed 7 years ago. Cancer. You left the industry to raise your son on your own. I'm sorry for your loss. Caleb's jaw tightened. You did your homework. I did. And I need you to understand something. This isn't about money for me. Not really. I mean, yes, I'm a venture capitalist, and yes, I want to make money. But that's not why I'm here. Then why are you here? Raymond leaned forward. Because I watched the automotive industry bury the Prometheus project. I watched them take brilliant innovation and kill it because it threatened their existing profit models. I watched good engineers get scattered and good ideas get locked in patent vaults where they'd never see daylight. His voice had gone hard, and I swore if I ever got the chance, I'd make sure something like that didn't happen again. Evan was watching Raymond carefully, and Caleb knew his son well enough to know he was analyzing every word, every gesture, looking for deception. Your engine, Raymond continued, isn't just impressive. It's proof that the Prometheus concept was viable, that they buried it for profit, not because it didn't work. And if we can bring it to market the right way, we can change the entire industry, force them to adapt or die. Revenge capitalism, Caleb said. Still capitalism. Fair, but it's also the only system we've got. And the question is, do you want that technology to stay in your garage, or do you want it to actually matter? It already matters, to me, to my son. Does it? Raymond looked at Evan. How old are you, son? 10, Evan said. You understand what your dad built? Better than you do, Raymond laughed. I believe it. So let me ask you something. Your dad created something that could revolutionize how cars work, make them cleaner, more efficient, accessible to people who can't afford electric vehicles, but he's keeping it secret. How does that make you feel? Don't use my kid to make your point, Caleb said sharply. I'm not. I'm asking him a genuine question. Raymond kept his eyes on Evan. What do you think? Evan looked at his father, then back at Raymond. I think my dad's scared. Caleb felt that like a punch. Scared of what? Raymond asked gently. Scared of losing control. Scared of people taking his work and making it into something bad. Scared of... Evan's voice got quieter. Scared of having something else get taken away from him. The coffee shop seemed very quiet. Raymond nodded slowly. That's fair. That's more than fair. And I can't promise that won't happen. I can't promise some corporate entity won't try to twist this into something you wouldn't recognize. But I can promise you this. He looked at Caleb directly. If you partner with me, you maintain majority ownership. You have veto power over how it's used. You control the patents, the licensing, everything. I provide the capital, the legal protection, and the industry connections. But you stay in the driver's seat. Nobody gives that away, Caleb said. Not in this business. Most people in this business don't have what you have. Most people need investors more than investors need them. You? Raymond gestured vaguely. You're sitting on the most valuable automotive IP in the world. You don't need me, but I think I can help you protect it and use it the right way. Caleb wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed to shut this down, walk away, go back to the invisible life where he controlled every variable. But Evan was looking at him with those eyes again. The ones that said, please, Dad, just this once. I need to think about it, Caleb said. Take your time. Raymond pulled out a business card, slid it across the table. That's my personal cell. Call me anytime, day or night. And Mr. Hayes, whatever you decide, that engine you built, that's yours. Nobody can take that away from you. Not anymore. They left the coffee shop 20 minutes later, Raymond heading to his hotel, Caleb and Evan walking back to where the Challenger was parked. Do you trust him? Evan asked. I don't trust anyone in that business. But, Caleb sighed, but he wasn't completely full of shit. That's something. So you're going to do it? I'm going to think about it. That's not the same thing. They climbed into the car. Caleb sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Dad? Evan's voice was small. Was I right? What I said in there? About what? About you being scared. Caleb wanted to lie, to protect his son from the weight of adult fears. But Evan deserved honesty. Yeah, Caleb said quietly. You were right. What are you scared of? Building something beautiful and watching it get used for ugly things. Trusting the wrong people. Making the wrong choice and having you pay for it. Evan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Mom used to say you can't protect beautiful things by hiding them. You have to put them in the world and trust they're strong enough to stay beautiful. Caleb's throat tightened. She said that? All the time. When you weren't listening. I should have listened more. Yeah, probably. Evan smiled a little. But you can start now. Caleb started the car. As they pulled into traffic, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Hayes, this is Marcus Chen from Arcadia. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I wanted to reach out personally. What you've built is extraordinary. I spent 15 years trying to solve problems you've already cracked. I know you have no reason to trust anyone in this industry, and I'm not asking you to. But if you do decide to move forward with this, I'd like to help. No strings, no corporate BS, just one engineer to another. You deserve credit for what you've created. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Marcus Caleb showed the text to Evan. Huh, Evan said. Maybe they're not all terrible. Maybe. They drove home through Seattle traffic, the Challenger running smooth and quiet, carrying secrets that were starting to leak into the world, whether Caleb was ready or not. And somewhere in the back of his mind, underneath the fear and the doubt, something else was stirring. Something that felt dangerous and hopeful at the same time. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, hiding wasn't the answer anymore. That night, after Evan had gone to bed, Caleb sat in their small living room with a beer he wasn't drinking and a decision he wasn't making. His phone sat on the coffee table. Raymond's card next to it. Marcus's text still unread beyond the preview. He thought about Sarah, about the way she'd pushed him to dream bigger, to believe his work mattered beyond their little bubble. She'd been the brave one, the one who believed things could be better, people could be better, if you just gave them the chance. She'd been wrong about a lot of things. The cancer, for one. The idea that you could fight hard enough and win. But maybe she'd been right about this. Maybe beautiful things needed to be in the world. Caleb picked up his phone and opened Marcus's message. Read it fully this time. Then he typed a response. Coffee tomorrow? Just talk. No commitments. The reply came in less than a minute. Absolutely. Name the place. Caleb sent the address of the grind. Seemed like it was becoming a theme. He put the phone down and finally took a sip of his beer. It was warm, but he didn't care. In his room, Evan was probably still awake, probably sketching mechanical systems in the dark with a flashlight, the way he always did when something big was happening. The Challenger sat in the parking lot below, its secrets no longer secret, its camouflage compromised. And Caleb Hayes, janitor and engineer and father, sat in the quiet dark and wondered if he was brave enough to step into the light. Tomorrow would tell. Marcus Chen arrived at the grind 15 minutes early, which told Caleb something right away. Eager people made mistakes. Desperate people made worse ones. But punctual people who showed up early without hovering, those were the ones worth listening to. Caleb watched from across the street as Marcus ordered coffee, took a table by the window and pulled out a tablet. Not his phone, a tablet, which meant he'd prepared something to show that was either promising or concerning, and Caleb hadn't decided which yet. Is that him? Evan asked. He'd insisted on coming again, and Caleb had been too tired to argue. That's him. He looks nervous. Good. Means he cares. They crossed the street and walked in. Marcus looked up immediately, stood too quickly, nearly knocked over his coffee. Definitely nervous. Caleb, thanks for meeting me. Marcus extended his hand, shook firmly but not aggressively. And Evan, right? The mastermind behind yesterday's revelation. I just opened a hood, Evan said. Sometimes that's all it takes. Marcus gestured to the chairs. Please sit. Can I get you anything? We're good, Caleb said, settling into the seat across from him. Evan took the third chair, pulling out his ever-present notebook. Marcus sat back down, hands flat on the table like he was trying to keep them from fidgeting. I want to start by saying I have no agenda here beyond talking to someone who understands engineering at a level I've only aspired to. What you built, it's not just innovative, it's proof that everything I've spent 15 years working on wasn't a dead end. The Prometheus project, Caleb said. You remember it. Hard to forget. I helped design the original architecture. Marcus's eyes widened. The core thermal management system. That was you? Me and three other people who got bought out and scattered when Prometheus decided the tech was more valuable locked in a vault than on the market. I know. I was at Prometheus when they made that call. Junior engineer fresh out of MIT thought I was going to change the world. Marcus laughed bitterly. Instead, I watched them bury 5 years of research because it threatened their existing product lines. I quit 6 months later. Caleb studied him. There was real anger there, old and deep. Why'd you end up at Arcadia? Because I was stupid enough to think a different company would be different. Turns out corporate's corporate, no matter whose name is on the building. Marcus pushed his tablet aside. Look, I'm not here to pitch you on anything. Raymond already did that, and honestly, he's better at it than me. I just wanted you to know that if you do decide to move forward, there are people in the industry who remember what Prometheus could have been. People who'd rather see your work used right than buried again. Evan looked up from his notebook. Do you think they'll try to bury it? Marcus considered the question seriously. Depends on who gets control. Big auto manufacturers? Absolutely. They'd license it, water it down, maybe release a luxury version at twice the price it should be. But if someone independent brings it to market, someone who isn't beholden to existing infrastructure, he shrugged. Then it gets interesting. Interesting how? Caleb asked. Disruptive. Tesla disrupted the market by making electric sexy. Your system could disrupt it by making hybrid technology actually affordable and efficient. Not just for rich people buying statement cars, but for working people who need reliable transportation. Marcus leaned forward. That's what Prometheus was supposed to be. Not a luxury item. A genuine alternative. Caleb felt something shift in his chest. That had been his vision too, back before everything fell apart. Before Sarah got sick and priorities realigned and survival became more important than innovation. The problem, Caleb said slowly, is that good intentions don't protect against bad execution. You can want to change the world all day long, but the moment you hand over control, you're trusting someone else's version of what that change looks like. True, Marcus agreed, but keeping it locked in your garage doesn't change anything either. It just means the technology dies with you instead of getting corrupted by someone else. Different kind of waste, same result. Evan was nodding, which meant he agreed with Marcus, which meant Caleb was outnumbered in his own family. What would you do? Caleb asked. If it were yours. Marcus didn't hesitate. Patent everything immediately. Lock down the core technology so tight that nobody can reproduce it without your permission. Then license it selectively, only to manufacturers who agree to specific terms. Price caps, accessibility requirements, environmental standards. Make it contractual. If they violate the terms, the license reverts. That's a fantasy. No manufacturer would agree to those restrictions. They would if you had something they couldn't get anywhere else. And you do. Marcus pulled up something on his tablet, turned it around. This is Prometheus Industries' latest quarterly report. They've spent $90 million in the last 2 years trying to crack the same problems you've already solved. $90 million, and they're not even close. The screen showed graphs, projections, R&D expenditures that made Caleb's eyes hurt. How'd you get this? Caleb asked. I still have friends there. Friends who are frustrated as hell watching management throw money at a problem while refusing to admit they killed the solution a decade ago. Marcus closed the tablet. Point is, you have leverage, real leverage. You're not some desperate inventor hoping someone notices you. You're the guy with the only working model of something the entire industry wants. That puts you in control if you're smart about it. And if I'm not smart about it, then yeah, they'll eat you alive. But that's where people like Raymond come in. That's where lawyers and contracts and very specific language come in. You don't have to do this alone. Caleb sat back, processing. Evan was watching him with those two smart eyes, probably 3 steps ahead in the conversation already. I need to see your work, Marcus said suddenly. Not the engine. Yes, the engine, but also your documentation, your process. If we're going to move forward with this, I need to understand exactly what you've built and how it integrates. Would you be willing to share that? Why? Because if I'm going to help protect this, I need to know what I'm protecting. And because, Marcus hesitated, because I spent 15 years thinking the Prometheus concept was impossible. I want to know how you made it possible. There was something raw in his voice, something that sounded like hope mixed with old grief. Caleb recognized it because he'd felt it himself, back when he still believed engineering could solve problems bigger than himself. "I'll think about it," Caleb said. Marcus nodded, accepting the non-answer. "That's fair. Can I ask one more thing?" "Go ahead." "Why'd you really leave Titan? I read the official story. Family reasons, personal circumstances." "But I've met engineers like you. We don't walk away unless something breaks us. What broke you?" The question hit harder than Marcus probably intended. Caleb saw Evan stiffen slightly, heard the edge in the silence. "My wife got sick," Caleb said quietly. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The insurance from Titan was good, but the job required 80-hour weeks and constant travel. I couldn't be the engineer they needed and the husband she needed, so I chose." Marcus's face fell. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "It's fine. It was 7 years ago." Caleb's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. He kept them under the table. "She died 16 months after diagnosis. Evan was 3, and suddenly I'm a single father with a toddler and a career that expects me to live at the office. Something had to give." "The career gave," Marcus said softly. "The career gave." Caleb glanced at Evan, who was staring at his notebook like the answers to the universe were written there. "No regrets. But it meant walking away from everything I'd built professionally, starting over. And when you start over in your 30s with a kid and no recent experience, you take what you can get. Janitorial work. Stable hours, decent benefits, time with my son. It was enough." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and Caleb could see him recalibrating, understanding shifting behind his eyes. "And the car? The engine?" "Started as therapy. Something to do with my hands after Evan went to bed. Kept me sane." Caleb smiled slightly. "Turned into something else." "It turned into a masterpiece," Marcus said. "And I know that sounds like flattery, but it's not. What you built in a garage with hand tools and salvaged parts, that's what passion looks like. That's what engineering is supposed to be before corporations get their hands on it." Evan finally spoke up. "My dad used to let me hand him tools when I was little. I didn't know what they were for, but he'd explain everything. Like I was his assistant instead of just a kid." "You were my assistant," Caleb said. "I mostly just made things worse." "You made things better by being there." Marcus watched them with an expression Caleb couldn't quite read. Respect, maybe, or envy. Hard to tell. "Look," Marcus said, "I know you don't know me, and I know trust is earned, not given. But if you decide to do something with this technology, I want to help. Not because I work for Arcadia. Honestly, that job's probably not going to last much longer anyway, but because I believe in what this could be, what it should have been a decade ago." "Why wouldn't your job last?" Evan asked. Marcus shrugged. "I called Victoria out in a meeting this morning, told her the company had gotten complacent, that we were more interested in protecting market share than innovating. She didn't appreciate the feedback." "You're going to get fired for that?" Evan looked horrified. "Probably. But I'm 42 years old, and I'm tired of building mediocre technology for companies that don't care about making things better. At some point, you have to decide what you're willing to compromise on." He looked at Caleb. "I think you made that decision 7 years ago. I'm just now catching up." Caleb's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a text from Raymond. "Morning. No pressure, but I'm meeting with a patent attorney this afternoon. If you want to sit in, just listen, no commitment. Let me know. Could be useful information either way." Caleb showed the text to Marcus. "You know anything about patent law?" "Enough to know it's complicated and expensive, but Raymond's right. If you're going to protect this, you need to start now. Once word gets out, and it will get out, every major manufacturer is going to start working on their own version. Prior art and patent timing matter." "What's prior art?" Evan asked. "Basically, proof that you invented something first. If someone else files a patent before you do, even if you built it first, they can claim ownership. It's why documentation matters. Dates, photographs, witness statements." Marcus looked at Caleb. "Do you have any of that?" "I have notebooks, build logs, dated receipts for parts going back 4 years." "That's good. That's a start. But you'll need more. Independent verification, technical documentation, maybe even a working demonstration for the patent office." Caleb felt the weight of it settling on him. This wasn't just about deciding whether to share his work anymore. This was about protecting it, legally and financially, in a system designed to favor whoever had the best lawyers and deepest pockets. "You should go," Evan said suddenly, "to the attorney meeting." "You think?" "Yeah. Even if you don't do anything with it, you should know what's possible, what the rules are." Evan met his eyes. "Mom always said knowledge doesn't commit you to anything except being informed." Caleb felt his throat tighten. Sarah had said that, usually right before dragging him to some seminar or workshop he didn't think he needed. She'd been right more often than not. "Okay," Caleb said. He typed a response to Raymond. "What time?" The reply came immediately. 2 p.m., downtown office. "I'll send the address." Caleb pocketed his phone and looked at Marcus. "You want to come?" Marcus blinked. "To the attorney meeting? You said you wanted to help. Here's your chance." Yes, absolutely." Marcus looked caught between surprised and grateful. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This might all be a terrible idea." "Most good ideas start out looking terrible," Marcus said. "That's how you know they're worth pursuing." They left the grind together, the three of them, and Caleb felt like he'd crossed some invisible line. Yesterday, he'd been a janitor with a secret. Today, he was something else. Someone making choices instead of avoiding them. The law office was downtown, high-rise building with glass walls and expensive furniture in the lobby. Raymond met them at the elevator, dressed in another casual outfit that probably cost more than Caleb's monthly rent, but at least made him look human. "Caleb, glad you could make it. Marcus, didn't expect to see you here." "Caleb invited me," Marcus said. "Hope that's all right." "More than all right. Honestly, having an engineer who understands the tech will help." Raymond pressed the button for the 23rd floor. The attorney we're meeting with is named Patricia Reeves. She specializes in intellectual property, specifically automotive and mechanical patents. I've worked with her before. She's good and she's expensive, but for this, we need the best. "How expensive?" Caleb asked. "Don't worry about that right now. Consider this a consultation. No cost to you." "I don't take charity." "It's not charity. It's an investment in a potential partnership. If we move forward, the costs get built into the business structure. If we don't, consider it the price of my education." The elevator opened onto a floor that screamed success. Polished wood, abstract art, views of the city that probably cost extra. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine directed them to a conference room. Patricia Reeves was already there, mid-50s, gray suit, eyes that probably missed nothing. She stood when they entered, shook hands with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Mr. Hollis, good to see you again. And you must be Mr. Hayes." She shook Caleb's hand, then Marcus's, then looked down at Evan. "And who's this?" "My son, Evan. He's part of this." "Fair enough. Have a seat. Everyone?" Patricia opened a laptop, pulled up what looked like a presentation. "Raymond gave me the basics. You've developed a hybrid engine system that's apparently revolutionary, built it independently, and now you're exploring options for protecting and potentially commercializing the technology. Is that accurate?" "Close enough," Caleb said. "Good. Let's start with the fundamentals. In the United States, patent law operates on a first-to-file basis. That means whoever files a patent application first generally gets priority, even if someone else invented it earlier. There are exceptions. Prior art, public disclosure rules, but the safest strategy is to file as soon as possible." "How soon is soon?" Caleb asked. "Ideally yesterday. Realistically, within the next 2 weeks." Patricia pulled up a document. "Here's why. The moment your technology became public knowledge, and from what Raymond tells me, that happened in a parking lot yesterday morning, the clock started ticking. If anyone who saw it decides to file their own patent claiming they developed something similar, it becomes a legal battle to prove who invented it first." Marcus leaned forward. "But we have witnesses. A dozen executives saw the engine. They know Caleb built it. Witnesses help, but they're not bulletproof. What we need is documentation. Build logs, receipts, photographs, dated notebooks, anything that proves continuous development over time." Patricia looked at Caleb. "Do you have that?" "I have notebooks, 4 years' worth, every modification, every test, every failure documented." "Excellent. I'll need copies of all of it. We'll also need detailed technical specifications, schematics, materials lists, and ideally, independent verification that the system works as claimed. I can verify it works, Marcus said. I've seen it. I can provide a technical assessment. That helps, but we'll need more. Ideally, a third-party engineering firm that can test and document performance. That creates credible evidence that stands up in court if someone challenges the patent. Evan was taking notes, his pencil moving fast across the page. Caleb wondered what he was writing. What about costs? Caleb asked. What are we talking about here? Patricia didn't sugarcoat it. For a patent this complex, you're looking at $50,000 to $70,000 in legal fees just to file. That includes the application, technical drawings, claims drafting, and initial prosecution. If the patent gets challenged, that number goes up significantly. Caleb felt the air leave his lungs. $70,000. He didn't have $7,000 in savings, let alone $70,000. I'll cover it, Raymond said immediately. No, Caleb said. Caleb, I said no. I'm not starting this by owing you 70 grand. Then consider it a loan against future earnings. If the patent gets approved and we move forward, the cost gets recouped from commercialization. If nothing comes of it, we write it off as a business expense. That's still charity with extra steps. Raymond's jaw tightened. It's business. I invest in things I believe in. You want to walk away from this because of pride, that's your choice. But don't pretend money isn't part of how this works. You can have the best idea in the world, but without capital to protect it, someone else will steal it and pretend they invented it. That's not fair, but it's reality. Caleb wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because Raymond was right. The system required money, and Caleb didn't have it. What if we did a phased approach? Marcus suggested. File a provisional patent first. It's cheaper, gives you 12 months of protection while you work on the full application, buys time to figure out funding. Patricia nodded. That's a viable strategy. A provisional patent runs about $5,000 to $10,000, depending on complexity. It's not as comprehensive as a full patent, but it establishes your filing date and gives you breathing room. $5,000 to $10,000. Still more than Caleb had, but closer to manageable. I can cover that, Marcus said. Not as an investment. As a personal loan, you pay me back when you can or you don't. I don't care. Why would you do that? Caleb asked. Because I watched this technology get killed once, and I don't want to watch it happen again. Call it penance. Caleb looked at his son. Evan was watching him with those eyes, the ones that said, "Make the right choice, Dad." Not the safe one. Okay, Caleb said slowly. Provisional patent. But I pay you back, Marcus. With interest. No interest. Just build something worth protecting. Patricia made notes on her laptop. I'll draft the provisional application. I'll need your technical documentation by end of week. Can you do that? Yes, Caleb said before he could talk himself out of it. Good. In the meantime, I strongly advise you to limit who has access to this technology. Don't demonstrate it publicly. Don't discuss specific details. Don't let anyone photograph or document the engine without a non-disclosure agreement in place. Bit late for that, Caleb muttered. Better late than never. From this point forward, everything is confidential. Patricia closed her laptop. I'll send over NDAs for everyone who's seen the technology. If they won't sign, that's a red flag. The meeting wrapped up 20 minutes later. They rode the elevator down in silence, Caleb's head spinning with information and implications. On the sidewalk, Raymond turned to him. I know that was a lot. Take some time, process it. But Caleb, you made the right call. Did I? Yeah, you did. Raymond shook his hand, then Marcus's. I'll be in touch. He walked away, leaving Caleb standing there with Marcus and Evan. You okay? Marcus asked. I have no idea what I just agreed to. You agreed to protect something you built. That's it. Everything else is details. Evan tugged on Caleb's sleeve. Can we go home now? I want to help you organize the notebooks. You want to help organize technical documentation? Yeah, I'm good at organizing. Caleb looked at Marcus. You want to see where the magic happened? Marcus's eyes lit up. Your garage? Absolutely. Fair warning, it's not fancy. It's a one-car garage behind a mediocre apartment complex. Don't care. Let's go. They drove in separate cars, Marcus following the Challenger through city streets. Caleb watched him in the rearview mirror, this engineer who'd walked away from corporate safety to help a janitor protect a dream. It was either incredibly stupid or incredibly brave, and Caleb hadn't decided which. The garage was exactly as he'd described it. Single car space, concrete floor stained with years of oil and coolant, metal shelves lined with parts and tools and notebooks. The Challenger barely fit inside with the door closed. Marcus stepped in like he was entering a cathedral. "This is where you built it," he said quietly. "This is where I built it." Marcus walked slowly around the space, taking in the tools, the parts, the systematic organization that spoke to someone who knew what they were doing. He stopped at the shelves of notebooks, pulled one down, opened it carefully. Pages of handwritten notes, sketches, calculations, test results. Dates in the corner of each page. Failures marked in red ink, successes in green. "This is beautiful," Marcus said. "I mean it. This is what engineering looks like before it becomes corporate." Evan had pulled down another notebook, was flipping through pages. "This one's from when I was 6. Dad let me help with the wiring harness integration." "You were helping at 6? I handed him tools mostly, but he explained everything while he worked, like I was learning, not just watching." Marcus looked at Caleb with something that might have been respect or might have been envy. "You taught him while you built." Seemed like a waste not to. He was there anyway. Most parents would have sent him inside. Most parents don't have kids who ask how regenerative braking systems optimize energy recapture while they're eating breakfast. Marcus laughed, but it was warm. Fair point. They spent the next 2 hours going through documentation. Marcus took photographs of pages with his phone, making note of dates and key developments. Evan organized notebooks chronologically, creating a timeline of the build. "We should probably get more official photographs," Marcus said. "Time-stamped, multiple angles, detailed shots of specific components. It'll help with the patent application." "I can do that," Evan said. "I'm good with Dad's camera." "When did you learn photography?" Caleb asked. "YouTube. Last summer. You were working a lot of overtime." Caleb felt a pang of guilt. The overtime had been necessary. They'd needed the money. But it meant Evan had been alone more, teaching himself things, growing up in the gaps Caleb couldn't fill. "You're full of surprises," Caleb said. "I learned from the best." Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. "Victoria just called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning, all senior engineering staff." "About what?" "About you, probably. Or about the fact that someone outside the company just made their entire R&D department look obsolete." Marcus pocketed his phone. "This should be interesting." "You don't have to fight my battles," Caleb said. "I'm not fighting your battles. I'm fighting mine. They just happen to overlap with yours." Marcus met his eyes. "I told you earlier, I'm tired of building mediocre technology for people who don't care about making things better. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm saying what needs to be said. You'll definitely get fired. Probably, but I'll sleep better." They locked up the garage as the sun started setting. Marcus headed to his car, promising to send over the photographs and notes by end of day. Caleb and Evan climbed into the Challenger. "Today was big," Evan said. "Yeah." "You okay with it?" Caleb started the engine. "Ask me again in a week." "Fair." They drove home in comfortable silence. When they got to the apartment, Caleb made dinner while Evan did actual homework for once. Spaghetti, nothing fancy, but they ate together at the small kitchen table like they did every night. "Dad?" Evan said between bites. "Yeah?" "I'm proud of you." Caleb stopped mid-bite. "For what?" "For being brave. For letting people see what you built. I know it's scary." "When'd you get so smart?" "I'm 10. I've been smart for years. You just noticed." Caleb smiled despite himself. "Fair point." After dinner, after dishes, after Evan had gone to bed, Caleb sat in the living room with his laptop. Marcus had sent over the photographs and notes, meticulously organized and labeled. Patricia had sent over draft NDAs and a timeline for the provisional patent. It was real. Actually happening. The thing he'd built in secret, the project that had kept him sane through the hardest years of his life, was becoming something public, something legal, something that might actually matter beyond his garage. His phone rang. Unknown number again, but this time he answered. Mr. Hayes, this is Daniel Chen. I'm a reporter with Tech Pulse. I heard about your hybrid engine system and I'd love to. Caleb hung up. The phone rang again. Different number. He turned it off. The word was out. Someone had talked, someone had leaked, and now it was starting. The attention, the questions, the people who wanted a piece of something they hadn't built. Caleb walked to Evan's room, opened the door quietly. His son was asleep, the notebook on his chest, pencil still in his hand. Caleb took the pencil gently, set the notebook on the nightstand, pulled the blanket up. "We'll figure this out," Caleb whispered. "Somehow." Evan didn't wake, just shifted slightly, the way kids do when they feel safe. And Caleb realized that was what this was really about. Not money, not recognition, not proving anything to anyone. It was about building something that made the world better for his kid, something that mattered beyond himself. The technology could do that, if he protected it right, if he made the right choices. Big if, huge if. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. The phone calls started at 6 in the morning. Caleb let them all go to voicemail. Reporters, bloggers, someone claiming to be from AutoWeek magazine. By 7, there were 12 messages he hadn't listened to and 3 emails from addresses he didn't recognize. Evan shuffled into the kitchen, hair sticking up in every direction, and squinted at Caleb's phone buzzing on the counter. "You're popular," he said. "I'm a problem." "Same thing sometimes." Evan poured cereal, added milk, sat down at the table. "Are you going to work today?" Caleb hadn't thought about it. He was supposed to be at Arcadia by 6 for his shift, but the idea of walking into that building now, with everyone knowing, everyone staring, his stomach turned. "I should call in," Caleb said. "You never call in." "Today's different." Evan crunched his cereal thoughtfully. "Marcus's meeting is at 9, right? The one Victoria called?" "That's what he said." "You should go." Caleb looked at his son. "That's not my meeting. I don't work there. Not like that." "But it's about you, about your engine. Don't you want to know what they're saying?" "Probably nothing good." "Then you should definitely be there." Evan finished his cereal, put the bowl in the sink. "Mom used to say if people are talking about you, you might as well be in the room." Caleb smiled despite himself. Sarah had said that, usually before marching into some parent-teacher conference or hospital administrator's office to advocate for something everyone said was impossible. She'd won more often than she'd lost. "You think I should just show up, uninvited? I think you should stop letting other people decide what happens with your stuff." Evan grabbed his backpack. "I gotta get to school. But seriously, Dad, stop hiding." He was out the door before Caleb could argue, 10 years old and already wiser than most adults. Caleb didn't know whether to be proud or terrified. By 8:30, Caleb was sitting in the Challenger outside Arcadia Tech Solutions, trying to convince himself this wasn't a terrible idea. The executive parking lot had more cars than usual. The meeting must have drawn the full leadership team. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. "Marcus. Meeting in 20 minutes. Conference room B. You should come." Caleb typed back. "Not my meeting." "Marcus. Your tech. Your meeting. I'll meet you in the lobby." Caleb sat there for another minute, then got out of the car. His janitorial uniform was still in the trunk. He'd never turned it in, never officially quit. He put it on because walking into that building as himself felt too exposed, but walking in as the janitor meant he belonged there, at least technically. Marcus was waiting by the elevator wearing a suit that looked like he'd slept in it. His eyes were tired but sharp. "You came," Marcus said. "Against my better judgment." That's how all the best decisions get made. Marcus pressed the elevator button. "Fair warning, this meeting's going to be ugly. Victoria's bringing in the full board plus legal counsel. They know they screwed up by dismissing you, and now they're scrambling to control the narrative." "What narrative?" "The one where their janitor built something their 50-person engineering team couldn't. It makes them look incompetent." Which they are, but they don't like being reminded of it publicly. The elevator doors opened. They stepped in. Caleb's reflection stared back from the mirrored walls. A guy in a janitor's uniform standing next to a corporate engineer. The contrast felt intentional. "You don't have to do this," Caleb said. "Burn bridges, I mean. You've got a career." "Had a career, past tense. I'm pretty sure I'm unemployed as of about 10 minutes from now." Marcus shrugged. "I'm okay with it. I've been practicing my resignation speech for 3 years. Time to use it." The doors opened on the 15th floor. Voices carried from the conference room, sharp, urgent, overlapping. Through the glass walls, Caleb could see Victoria at the head of the table, flanked by men in expensive suits. Raymond was there too, looking calmer than everyone else, which probably meant he'd already won whatever argument was happening. Marcus walked straight in. Caleb hesitated, then followed. The room went silent. Victoria's eyes widened. "Mr. Hayes, this is a closed meeting." "He should be here," Raymond said calmly. "Considering you're discussing his intellectual property. We're discussing company strategy related to emerging technology in our industry sector," one of the suits said. "Probably legal counsel based on the way he talked. Lots of words that meant nothing." "You're discussing my engine," Caleb said. "Let's not pretend otherwise." Victoria's smile was tight. "Mr. Hayes, I appreciate your interest, but this is an internal executive meeting. Perhaps we can schedule time to speak with you separately." "He stays," Marcus interrupted, "or I walk, and I take my entire engineering team's support with me." "You don't have the authority to make that call," Victoria said coldly. "Watch me." Marcus pulled out his phone, started typing. Another executive, older guy with white hair, leaned forward. "Everyone calm down, let's be practical here. Mr. Hayes, please sit. We're all on the same side." Caleb didn't sit. "What side is that?" "The side that wants to see innovation succeed." The man extended his hand. "James Kirkland, chairman of the board. I apologize for the confusion. This situation has evolved quickly, and we're still determining the best path forward." Caleb shook his hand but didn't relax. "Best path for who?" "For everyone. For you, for Arcadia, for the industry." Kirkland gestured to an empty chair. "Please." Caleb sat. Marcus took the chair next to him, phone still in hand like a weapon. Victoria regained control of the room with visible effort. "As I was saying before the interruption, we've confirmed that Mr. Hayes has developed a hybrid propulsion system that appears to incorporate elements of technology Arcadia has been researching independently. The question is how we move forward in a way that benefits all parties." "You haven't been researching anything close to what he built," Marcus said flatly. "I've seen your R&D reports. You're 5 years behind minimum." One of the other executives bristled. "Our research is proprietary and ongoing. Your research is stagnant, and you know it. You've been recycling the same failed approaches for 3 years while management cuts budgets and demands quarterly profits over actual innovation." "Marcus, that's enough," Victoria said sharply. "No, it's not nearly enough. You want to talk about what's best for everyone? How about we start with honesty?" Marcus stood up, and Caleb saw he was shaking slightly. Not from fear, from anger held too long. Caleb built something revolutionary in a garage with hand tools and salvaged parts. He did it alone, on his own time, with his own resources. And now you're sitting here trying to figure out how to claim credit for it, or own it, or bury it so it doesn't make you look bad. That's not strategy. That's theft. The room erupted. Multiple people talking at once, voices rising, Victoria trying to restore order. Raymond sat back with a slight smile, like he was watching a play he'd already seen. Kirkland raised his hand, and somehow that was enough. The room quieted. "Marcus," Kirkland said calmly, "you're out of line." "I'm exactly where I should be, standing up for someone who actually deserves it." "You're fired," Victoria said, "effective immediately." Marcus didn't flinch. "Good. Saves me the resignation speech." He looked at Caleb. "Whatever you decide to do with your technology, I'm with you. As a consultant, advisor, friend, whatever you need. These people don't deserve to be in the same room with it." He walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. Caleb sat there, acutely aware that he was now alone in a room full of people who wanted something from him. The janitor's uniform felt like armor and target simultaneously. Raymond broke the silence. "Well, that was dramatic, but Marcus isn't wrong." "Raymond, please," Victoria said tiredly. "No, let's address this directly. Caleb, you're in a unique position. You've created something valuable, and now everyone wants a piece. Arcadia wants to claim some association with it because it makes them look innovative by proximity. My investors want to fund it because it's potentially worth billions. Competitors want to steal it or discredit it. And you?" Raymond looked at him directly. "You just want to protect what you built and make sure it's used right. Am I close?" "Close enough," Caleb said. "So here's the reality. You need legal protection, capital, and industry relationships. Arcadia has two of those three, but they also have a track record of corporate bureaucracy and risk aversion. They'll water down your technology, delay implementation, and probably shelve it if it threatens existing revenue streams. That's a gross mischaracterization, one of the suits protested. Is it? How many innovative projects has this company acquired in the last 5 years? How many actually made it to market? Raymond waited. No one answered. That's what I thought. Kirkland cleared his throat. Mr. Hayes, I think we need to have a more private conversation. Perhaps just you, me, and our legal team. No, Caleb said. Excuse me? I said no. Anything you want to say, you can say here, with witnesses. Caleb looked around the table. Because I've been in enough corporate meetings to know how this works. Private conversations become misunderstandings later. Promises become we never actually agreed to that. I'm done with that. Victoria's expression hardened. Mr. Hayes, we're trying to help you. By offering what? A consulting contract? A buyout? A partnership where you control everything and I get a percentage if I'm lucky? The silence answered him. That's what I thought. Caleb stood. I appreciate the interest, but I'll protect my own technology, thanks. You can't do that alone, the legal counsel said. The patent process alone requires expertise and capital you don't have. Then I'll find people who want to help without trying to own me in the process. We're not trying to own you, Victoria said, but her voice lacked conviction. Sure you are. That's what corporations do. They find something valuable and they consume it. Doesn't matter if it's technology or people. It's all just assets on a balance sheet. Caleb headed for the door. I was an asset once. I'm not doing that again. Raymond caught up with him in the hallway. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. For what it's worth, I agree with you. Arcadia is not the right partner for this. They'd kill it, just slower than Prometheus did. So what do I do? Raymond walked with him to the elevator. You file that provisional patent. You document everything. You find the right partners, people who care about the work, not just the profit. And you stay in control. That's non-negotiable. Easy to say. Harder to do when I'm broke and don't know the first thing about running a business. That's where people like Marcus come in. Engineers who've been through the corporate machine and came out the other side still believing in something. You trust those people. The ones who've got nothing to gain except seeing something good actually happen. They reached the lobby. Through the glass doors, Caleb could see Marcus leaning against the Challenger, typing on his phone. He waited, Caleb said. Of course he did. He just burned his career for you. He's invested now whether you like it or not. Raymond pulled out his wallet, handed Caleb a different business card. That's my personal attorney, not Patricia. She's for patents. This guy handles corporate structure, contracts, partnerships. Call him today, before someone else tries to corner you. I can't afford... First consultation's free. After that, we'll figure it out. Raymond extended his hand. I meant what I said. I want to help. But only if you want the help. Your call. Caleb shook his hand, pocketed the card, and walked out. Marcus looked up from his phone. How bad was it after I left? About what you'd expect, they offered nothing concrete and got offended when I said no. Good. They don't deserve you. Marcus pushed off the car. I've been thinking, we need to move fast. Word's spreading. I've already gotten 3 calls from recruiters asking if I know how to contact you. People are circling. Great. It is actually. Means there's real interest. But it also means we need to lock down that patent immediately. No more waiting. Marcus showed Caleb his phone. I've been emailing with Patricia. She can fast-track the provisional if we get her the documentation by end of day. It'll cost more, but it's worth it. How much more? $12,000 instead of $7,000, but it puts a legal wall around your technology within 48 hours. Caleb's head spun. I don't have $12,000. I do. Or I will, once my severance processes, which should be this afternoon. You can't spend your severance on my patent. Why not? I was going to quit anyway. You just accelerated the timeline. Marcus opened the passenger door. Come on, we've got work to do. Where are we going? Your garage. We need to photograph everything, document every component, create a technical specification detailed enough that Patricia can file with confidence. Then we're meeting her at her office at 5 with a complete package. Caleb looked at him. this engineer who'd just torched his career and was now planning to spend his severance protecting someone else's work. Why are you doing this? Marcus met his eyes. Because I've spent 15 years building things I didn't believe in for people I didn't respect. And I'm tired of it. Your engine? That's something worth protecting. That's something that could actually matter. So yeah, I'm all in. You can pay me back later or not. I don't care. But we're doing this right. Evan would have liked him. Sarah would have liked him too, probably. She'd always had a soft spot for people who chose principle over pragmatism. Okay, Caleb said. Let's do it. They worked through the afternoon in the garage, Marcus photographing every angle of the engine, every component, every connection. Caleb narrated technical specifications while Marcus took notes, asking questions that proved he actually understood what he was looking at. The regenerative braking system here, Marcus said, pointing to a cluster of components. This isn't standard architecture. Had to modify it. Standard systems lose too much energy in the conversion process. This recaptures about 30% more. 30%? That's insane. How'd you manage that? Caleb explained the thermal management integration, the custom capacitor arrays, the software algorithms that optimized energy flow in real time. Marcus listened like he was hearing scripture, occasionally stopping him to make sure he understood. You built the software too? Marcus asked. Had to. Nothing off the shelf could handle the integration complexity. So you're not just a mechanical engineer, you're a software engineer too. I'm a guy who solves problems with whatever tools work. Marcus shook his head in something like awe. You know what you are. You're what engineers used to be before we got specialized into oblivion. You see a problem, you fix it. You need software, you write it. You need custom parts, you machine them. That's becoming a lost art. Or I'm just stubborn. Stubborn works too. By 4 o'clock, they had over 300 photographs, 40 pages of technical notes, and a parts inventory that read like a manifesto on creative resourcefulness. Marcus compiled everything into a digital package while Caleb made coffee that was probably too strong, but nobody complained. This is good, Marcus said, reviewing the files. Really good. Patricia can work with this. Caleb's phone rang. Raymond. Tell me you're still planning to file that patent, Raymond said without preamble. Meeting Patricia at 5. Good. Because I just got a very interesting phone call from Prometheus Industries. They want to meet with you. Caleb's stomach dropped. How did they even know? Someone from Arcadia talked, probably trying to drum up interest, prove they're connected to innovation they had nothing to do with. Doesn't matter. Point is, Prometheus knows, and they're moving fast. What do they want? Same thing everyone wants. To own it, control it, probably bury it like they did last time. Raymond's voice hardened. Do not meet with them without legal representation. Do not sign anything. Do not even acknowledge them until that patent's filed. I won't. I'm serious, Caleb. These people are sharks. They'll smile, promise you the world, and then gut you the moment you trust them. I've seen it happen. I said I won't. Raymond exhaled. Okay, good. Call me after you meet with Patricia. I want to know we're protected. He hung up. Caleb looked at Marcus, who'd obviously heard enough to understand. Prometheus is circling already, Marcus said. Apparently. That's fast, even for them. Marcus closed his laptop. Which means we really need to move. Now. They made it to Patricia's office by 4:45, arms full of documentation and a laptop heavy with technical files. Patricia was ready, conference room set up, assistant standing by to help with filing. Gentlemen, she said, all business, let's see what we've got. For the next 3 hours, they walked Patricia through everything. She asked questions that demonstrated she actually understood patent law, not just the paperwork, but the strategy. Where to file, how to structure claims, what language would hold up under challenge. This is comprehensive, she said finally, more than comprehensive. This is the kind of documentation I usually only see from major corporate R&D departments. Caleb's thorough, Marcus said. Thorough is an understatement. With this, I can file a provisional that'll stand up against anything Prometheus or anyone else tries to throw at it. Patricia pulled up a document on her screen. Here's what I'm proposing. We file under 3 separate claim categories: mechanical systems, electrical integration, and software architecture. That creates 3 layers of protection. If someone tries to work around one, the others still hold. How long does filing take? Caleb asked. I can have it submitted by midnight tonight if you approve the language. Protection starts the moment it's filed, not when it's processed. Do it, Caleb said before he could second-guess himself. Patricia smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll transfer the funds now. $12,000, right? $12,500 with the expedited filing fee. Marcus didn't hesitate, just started tapping on his banking app. Caleb wanted to stop him, to argue, to insist this was too much. But Marcus gave him a look that said, don't even try, so Caleb kept his mouth shut. Transfer's done, Marcus said. You should see it in a few minutes. Patricia's assistant confirmed the payment, and just like that, Caleb was $12,500 in debt to a man he'd known for less than 48 hours. I'll pay you back, Caleb said quietly. Every cent. I know you will, when you can. No rush. Marcus stood, stretched. What matters is we're protected. Now Prometheus can circle all they want. They're too late. They left the office at 8:30, the Seattle skyline lit up against the night sky. Caleb felt exhausted and wired simultaneously, like he'd run a marathon and was somehow expected to run another. His phone buzzed. Text from Evan. How'd it go? Caleb typed back. Filed. Official as of tonight. Evan's response was immediate. Told you to stop hiding. Marcus saw the exchange and laughed. Your kid's got your number. He's too smart for his own good, or he's exactly as smart as he needs to be. Marcus headed toward his car. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. Why's that? Because now that you're legally protected, you've got actual choices to make. Who to partner with, how to commercialize, what terms you'll accept. The fun stuff. Doesn't sound fun. It's not, but it's necessary. Marcus paused at his car door. For what it's worth, you did the right thing today, taking control before someone else did. I wouldn't have done it without you. Sure you would have, just slower and with more mistakes. I just accelerated the timeline. Marcus smiled. Go home. Hug your kid. Tomorrow we start building something real. He drove off, leaving Caleb standing in the parking lot with a provisional patent, a debt he couldn't pay, and the distinct feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't predict. When Caleb got home, Evan was still awake, sitting at the kitchen table with textbooks open but clearly not doing homework. He looked up when Caleb walked in. You look tired, Evan said. I am tired. But good tired or bad tired? Caleb thought about it. Scary tired, like I just did something irreversible and now I have to live with the consequences. That's called making a decision, Dad. People do it all the time. When'd you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just noticing. Evan closed his textbook. So what happens now? Now I have to figure out what to do with a patent I can't afford to defend if someone challenges it. Raymond said he'd help with that. Raymond's a businessman. He wants something. Yeah. He wants your technology to succeed. That's not the worst thing someone could want. Evan stood, put his books away. Mom always said you can't control what people want from you. You can only control what you're willing to give. Caleb's throat tightened. She said that about the hospital when they kept pushing experimental treatments. And she decided what she was willing to do. And she did it on her terms. Evan looked at him with those eyes again, the ones that saw too much. You get to decide too, Dad, what you're willing to do, what your terms are. Nobody can make you give more than that. What if my terms mean walking away from millions of dollars? Then you walk away. We've been broke before. We're good at it. Caleb pulled his son into a hug, sudden and tight. Evan hugged back, skinny arms surprisingly strong. I love you, kid, Caleb said. I know. I love you too. Evan pulled back. Now go to sleep. You look like you're about to fall over. Caleb did sleep, better than he had in weeks. And when he woke up the next morning, there were 23 new voicemails, 14 emails, and a text from Raymond that just said, Prometheus called again. They're persistent. Don't answer. He didn't answer. Instead, he made breakfast, got Evan off to school, and sat down at the kitchen table with his laptop to figure out what the hell he was going to do next. The provisional patent was filed. That bought him 12 months to figure out the full patent application, 12 months to decide if he wanted to commercialize, license, or just keep the technology locked down so nobody could use it. 12 months to choose between safety and impact. His phone rang. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Same number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Hayes, this is Jennifer Tsai, VP of Business Development at Prometheus Industries. I apologize for the persistence, but we're very interested in discussing your hybrid technology. I'm not interested in selling, Caleb said. We're not looking to buy. We're looking to partner. There's a difference. Not much of one in my experience. I understand your skepticism. The automotive industry has a history of consuming innovation rather than collaborating with it. But I think you'll find Prometheus has changed since the last time you interacted with us. I didn't interact with you. You bought my employer and killed my project. That was 12 years ago, under different leadership. Things are different now. Are they? Let me buy you coffee. One conversation. If you're not interested after that, I'll leave you alone. You have my word. Caleb almost laughed. Words from corporations meant nothing, but something in her voice was different from Victoria's polished dismissiveness or Raymond's calculated charm. She sounded tired. Real. One coffee, Caleb said. Public place, tomorrow morning. Name the spot. The Grind, Madison and 5th, 8 a.m. I'll be there. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. She hung up. Caleb stared at his phone, wondering if he'd just made a mistake or taken the first step towards something that might actually work. His phone buzzed again. Marcus. Heard Prometheus called. Be careful. They're good at saying the right things. Caleb typed back. Meeting her tomorrow. Coffee. Just to hear what she says. Marcus. Want me there? Caleb thought about it. Having Marcus as a witness made sense. Having Marcus as backup made even more sense. Yeah. 8 a.m. The Grind. Marcus. I'll be there. Caleb put his phone down and looked around his small apartment. The place where he'd raised his son alone, built revolutionary technology in secret, and tried to stay invisible while the world moved around him. That invisibility was gone now. For better or worse, people saw him. The question was whether they saw what he'd built or just what they could take from it. Tomorrow would tell him which. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Sarah's voice reminded him that you couldn't protect beautiful things by hiding them forever. Eventually, you had to put them in the world and trust they were strong enough to stay beautiful. He hoped she was right. Jennifer Tsai arrived at the Grind exactly on time, which was either a good sign or meant she was very good at playing the game. She was mid-40s, sharp suit softened by a scarf that looked hand-knit, carrying a leather bag that had seen actual use. Not the polished corporate armor Caleb had expected. Marcus was already there, sitting at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. Caleb had arrived 10 minutes early, old habit from when being early meant you controlled the space. Jennifer spotted them immediately, walked over without hesitation. Mr. Hayes, thank you for meeting me. She extended her hand. And you must be Marcus Chen. Your reputation precedes you. Does it? Marcus shook her hand, guarded. Former Prometheus engineer, left after the Titan acquisition, spent the last decade trying to rebuild what we destroyed. Yes, I know who you are. Jennifer sat without waiting for an invitation. I also know you probably hate me on principle, which is fair. I don't hate you, Marcus said. I don't know you. Also fair. Jennifer set her bag on the floor, folded her hands on the table. I'm going to skip the corporate pleasantries because I think we're all too tired for that. Prometheus screwed up 12 years ago. We bought innovative technology and killed it because it threatened our existing profit models. That was wrong. It was short-sighted, and it cost us some of the best engineers in the industry. I can't undo that, but I can tell you what's different now. Leadership change? Caleb asked. Leadership purge. 3 years ago, the board finally admitted that burying innovation wasn't a sustainable strategy. They brought in new executives, restructured R&D, and committed to actually developing the technology we'd acquired instead of vaulting it. Jennifer pulled out a tablet, brought up a presentation. This is our current hybrid development program. $90 million invested over 2 years, 50 engineers, state-of-the-art facilities, and we're still nowhere close to what you built in a garage. She turned the tablet so they could see. Charts, timelines, technical specifications, that looked impressive until you realized they were chasing problems Caleb had already solved. Marcus leaned forward, studying the data. You're still using thermal coupling at the junction points. That's your bottleneck. I know, Jennifer said. Our engineers know. We've tried 17 different approaches. None of them work efficiently enough to justify production. Because you're approaching it wrong, Marcus said. You're trying to integrate systems that were designed separately. Caleb built his from the ground up as a unified architecture. That's the difference. Jennifer looked at Caleb. Is that accurate? More or less, Caleb said. See, that's what I'm talking about. You solved in 4 years what our team can't crack with unlimited resources. Jennifer closed the tablet. I'm not here to steal that. I'm here to ask if you'd consider working with us to bring it to market properly. Define properly, Caleb said. Manufacturing scale, safety certification, distribution networks, dealer partnerships, all the infrastructure required to get this technology into actual cars that actual people can buy. Jennifer's voice gained intensity. Your engine is brilliant, but it's one prototype. To change the industry, you need production. And production requires resources neither you nor any independent investor can provide alone. Raymond disagrees, Caleb said. Raymond's a good man and a smart investor, but he doesn't build cars. We do. We have factories, supply chains, relationships with parts manufacturers, testing facilities that can validate performance under every condition imaginable. Jennifer paused. And we have something else you need, a reputation to rebuild. Explain, Marcus said. Prometheus destroyed trust when we buried the Titan technology. The industry knows it, the public knows it, and frankly, we know it. But if we bring your system to market, if we do it right, with you maintaining creative control and getting proper credit, we prove we've changed. And you get the satisfaction of forcing us to make good on promises we broke a decade ago. It was a smart pitch, Caleb had to admit. Appeal to justice, offer resources he actually needed, frame it as mutual redemption. Jennifer was good at her job. What would the terms look like? Caleb asked. Jennifer pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. This is a preliminary proposal, not a contract, not a commitment, just a framework for discussion. Caleb opened it. Marcus leaned over to read along. The first page outlined partnership structure. Caleb would maintain IP ownership. Prometheus would license the technology for production with royalty payments per unit. The second page detailed creative control provisions, veto rights over design modifications, and mandatory consultation on all engineering decisions. The third page showed projected royalty earnings. The numbers made Caleb's head spin. This is assuming low-end production of 50,000 units annually, Jennifer said. Conservative estimate. If the technology performs the way we think it will, that number could triple within 5 years. Marcus was doing math in his head. Caleb could tell. These royalty percentages, they're higher than industry standard. Yes, because this isn't standard technology, and Mr. Hayes isn't a standard engineer. We're not buying him out or absorbing him into corporate structure. We're partnering with an independent innovator who maintains autonomy. Jennifer looked at Caleb. That's non-negotiable, by the way. Our board approved these terms specifically because they want to prove Prometheus can collaborate without consuming. Why? Caleb asked. Why now? Why me? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, less pitch, more truth. Because I was one of the engineers who worked on the original Titan project. Junior associate, fresh out of grad school, thought I was going to change the world. Then we got bought out, the technology got vaulted, and my team got scattered. I watched good people leave the industry entirely because they couldn't stomach what we'd become. She pulled out a photo from her bag, set it on the table. A group of young engineers in Titan automotive shirts, laughing at some office party. Caleb recognized himself in the back row, younger and less tired. Marcus was there too, barely visible behind someone's shoulder. We were supposed to build something that mattered, Jennifer said. Instead, we built a case study in corporate failure. I've spent 12 years trying to fix that from the inside. This is my chance. Your technology, done right, proves innovation doesn't have to die in a vault. It proves good engineering still matters more than quarterly earnings. She looked at both of them. I'm not asking you to trust Prometheus. I'm asking you to trust that some of us who still work there remember what we were supposed to be. The coffee shop felt very quiet. Marcus spoke first. I know 3 other engineers from that photo who left the industry completely. Good people, brilliant people. They couldn't take the corporate machine anymore. I know, Jennifer said. I've stayed in touch with most of them, and every single one asked me the same question. Why do you stay? Why keep trying to fix something that's fundamentally broken? She smiled sadly. I never had a good answer, until now. This is why I stayed, for the chance to do it right this time. Caleb studied the proposal again. The terms were generous, maybe too generous. But generous could mean desperate, and desperate could mean they'd change the terms later once they had what they wanted. I need to think about it, Caleb said. Of course. Take your time. Jennifer stood, pulled a business card from her bag. That's my direct line. Call any time, day or night. And Mr. Hayes, whatever you decide, thank you for giving me the chance to say what I should have said 12 years ago. I'm sorry we failed you, all of you. She left. Caleb and Marcus sat in silence, the proposal between them like evidence in a trial they hadn't agreed to. What do you think? Caleb asked finally. Marcus rubbed his face. I think that was the most honest pitch I've ever heard from a corporate executive, which either means she's genuine or she's very, very good at her job. Could be both. Could be both, Marcus agreed. He picked up the photo Jennifer had left behind. I forgot about this party. This was right before the acquisition announcement. We were all so excited about the future. Young and stupid, Caleb said. Young and hopeful. Different thing. Marcus set the photo down. Look, I'm biased. I want Prometheus to burn for what they did. But Jennifer's right about one thing. You need manufacturing infrastructure to scale this. Raymond can provide capital. I can provide engineering support. But neither of us can build 10,000 engines a year. Only a major manufacturer can do that. So you think I should consider it? I think you should verify everything she said. Talk to Patricia about the legal terms. Talk to Raymond about the business structure. Talk to people who currently work at Prometheus and find out if the culture actually changed or if this is just good PR. Marcus paused. But yeah, I think you should consider it with extreme caution. Caleb's phone buzzed. Text from Raymond. How'd it go? Caleb typed, complicated. Can you meet? Raymond, 30 minutes. My hotel. Caleb showed the text to Marcus. You want to come? Definitely. This is getting interesting. Raymond's hotel suite was absurdly nice. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble bathroom visible through an open door, furniture that looked uncomfortable but probably cost thousands. He answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, barefoot, looking more human than Caleb had seen him. Come in. Coffee's fresh. Help yourself. Raymond gestured to a fancy machine that probably made better coffee than Caleb's entire kitchen. So Prometheus made their play? They did. Caleb handed him the proposal. Raymond read through it quickly, his expression shifting from neutral to surprised to something that might have been impressed. These terms are generous. Unusually generous. That's what I thought, which makes me suspicious. Smart. Always be suspicious of generosity in business. Raymond set the proposal down. But in this case, I think there's actual strategy behind it. Prometheus needs this. Not just the technology. They need the redemption story. Company that buried innovation 12 years ago partners with independent inventor to bring breakthrough to market. That's a narrative they can sell to investors, customers, media. It's worth millions in PR alone. So I'm a PR opportunity, Caleb said flatly. You're a lot of things, but yes, you're also valuable to them symbolically. That doesn't make the offer bad. It just means you have leverage. Raymond pulled out his phone, started typing. I'm sending this to my attorney. He needs to review the terms, look for traps, make sure the royalty structure is actually enforceable. We'll also need to verify Prometheus's current financials, make sure they're stable enough to honor long-term commitments. How long does that take? For a basic review, 72 hours? For a thorough one? A week? Maybe 2. Raymond looked up. But here's the thing, Caleb. You don't have to decide right now. You have a provisional patent. You have options. Prometheus isn't your only path. What are the other paths? Raymond set his phone down, leaned against the desk. Path 1. License to multiple manufacturers. Spread the technology across the industry instead of giving exclusivity to one company. More complex legally, but potentially more lucrative and harder for any single entity to corrupt. Path 2? Marcus asked. Start your own manufacturing company. Use investment capital to build production capability independently. Slower, riskier, but you maintain complete control. That's insane, Caleb said. I'm a janitor, not a CEO. You're an engineer who built revolutionary technology in a garage. Don't sell yourself short. Raymond smiled. But yes, it's ambitious, would require significant capital, experienced management team, years of development before seeing revenue. Not impossible, but not easy. What's path 3? Caleb asked. Don't commercialize at all. Keep the patent, license it selectively for research purposes only, prevent anyone from mass producing it. Your technology exists, it's protected, but it stays theoretical. That's just a different kind of vault, Marcus said. It is, but it's your vault, your choice. Raymond picked up the Prometheus proposal again. Look, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I see. Jennifer's offer is solid, the terms are fair, and if Prometheus has actually changed the way she claims, this could work, but it requires trust, and trust requires verification. So we verify, Caleb said. Exactly. We verify everything. Corporate structure, leadership stability, current projects, employee satisfaction, financial health. We talk to people who work there now, people who left, competitors who've dealt with them. We build a complete picture before you commit to anything. Marcus was nodding. I know people who still work there, engineers who survived the purge. I can reach out quietly, get honest assessments. Do it, Raymond said. And Caleb, in the meantime, you need to think about what you actually want. Not what's most profitable or most prestigious. What do you want this technology to become? How do you want it used? What impact do you want it to have? Those were harder questions than they should have been. Caleb had spent 4 years building the engine, but he'd never articulated why beyond keeping himself sane and teaching his son. The bigger purpose, the industry-changing potential, that had always felt abstract, someone else's concern. But it wasn't abstract anymore. It was real. It was his. And decisions needed to be made. I want it to be affordable, Caleb said slowly. I want working people to be able to buy cars with this technology, not just rich people making statements. I want it to actually reduce emissions instead of just being greenwashing. And I want the people who build it to be treated fairly, paid well, given credit for their work. Raymond was smiling. That's a good start. That's something we can build strategy around. They spent the next hour going through details, timeline for verification, questions to ask, red flags to watch for. Marcus made a list of contacts at Prometheus, people he trusted to be honest. Raymond outlined financial due diligence, documents he'd need to review. By the time Caleb left, he had a plan. Not a decision, but a process for getting to one. It felt more manageable than the chaos of the last few days. His phone rang on the drive home. Unknown number again, but this time he recognized the area code, Ohio. He answered. Caleb Hayes? Speaking. This is Thomas Carey. I'm an attorney representing Titan Automotive Legacy Fund. We've become aware of recent developments regarding hybrid technology you allegedly developed, and we believe there may be intellectual property questions related to your previous employment with Titan Automotive. Caleb's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I left Titan 12 years ago. We're aware. However, our records indicate you signed a comprehensive IP agreement during your employment, which may extend to innovations developed using knowledge or experience gained during that period. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss. I didn't use Titan knowledge. I built my engine independently, on my own time, with my own resources. That may be the case, but the agreement you signed was quite broad. We're not making accusations, Mr. Hayes. We're simply suggesting a conversation would be beneficial for all parties. Beneficial how? We might be interested in acquiring certain rights or establishing a licensing arrangement. Obviously, compensation would be involved. Caleb pulled over, parked on the shoulder. Let me be clear. I don't work for Titan. I haven't worked for Titan in over a decade. Whatever I built is mine, legally and ethically. If you want to challenge that, talk to my attorney. That won't be necessary. Patricia Reeves, Reeves & Associates. She's handling all IP matters, Direct all communication through her. Caleb hung up. His hands were shaking. He called Patricia immediately. Caleb, what's wrong? I just got a call from someone claiming to represent Titan Automotive. They're saying my employment agreement might give them rights to my engine. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Did you sign an IP agreement when you worked there? Yeah, but that's standard. It covered work I did for them, not personal projects. IP agreements vary widely. Some are narrow, some are absurdly broad. I need to see the exact language. Patricia's voice had gone sharp, focused. Do you have a copy of your employment contract? Somewhere. Maybe. It's been 12 years. Find it, tonight if possible, and don't talk to anyone from Titan or their representatives without me present. This could be a legitimate claim or it could be intimidation. Either way, we need to respond carefully. Caleb drove home in a fog. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. He'd protected his technology from theft, only to have his former employer reach back across a decade to claim ownership based on paperwork he barely remembered signing. Evan was doing homework at the kitchen table when Caleb walked in. He took one look at Caleb's face and closed his textbook. What happened? Titan Automotive is claiming they might own my engine because I used to work for them. Evan's expression went dark. That's bullshit. Language. It's accurate. You built that engine years after you left them. They can't just claim it now. They can claim whatever they want. Doesn't mean they're right, but they can make it expensive to prove them wrong. Caleb started searching through the filing cabinet where he kept old documents, birth certificates, tax returns, medical records from Sarah's treatment, and somewhere, buried under years of life's paperwork, his employment contract from Titan. He found it an hour later, creased and coffee-stained. 23 pages of dense legal language, most of which he'd never read carefully. He scanned for the IP clause. There. Page 16. Employee agrees that all inventions, discoveries, and improvements conceived or reduced to practice during employment, or within 2 years following termination, relating to the business or demonstrably resulting from work performed during employment, shall be the exclusive property of Titan Automotive. 2 years following termination. Caleb had left Titan 12 years ago. He was safe. But then he read the next paragraph. In cases where invention utilizes proprietary information, trade secrets, or foundational knowledge gained during employment, the above provision may extend beyond the 2-year period at company's discretion. At company's discretion. That was the trap. Caleb took photos of the relevant pages, sent them to Patricia with a text. Found the contract. This is the clause they're probably using. Patricia responded within minutes. This is what I was afraid of. The discretionary extension gives them an argument. Not a strong one, but enough to make noise. We'll fight it, but it'll take time and money. How much money? Depends how hard they push. Could be $10,000 in legal fees. Could be 50. Could be more if they're serious. Caleb set his phone down, feeling the walls closing in. Legal battles on multiple fronts. Costs piling up faster than he could track. Decisions multiplying like cells. This was why people sold out early. This was why innovation died in garages instead of changing industries. Dad? Evan was standing in the doorway. Is it bad? It's complicated. That usually means bad. Caleb managed a tired smile. Yeah, usually. Evan sat down next to him, picked up the contract, tried to read it. This language is terrible. Who writes like this? Lawyers trying to protect companies from people like me. Did you use any of their proprietary stuff in your engine? No. I used principles I learned in engineering school, research I did independently, and a lot of trial and error. Nothing from Titan. Then they can't win, right? Legally? Probably not. But they don't have to win. They just have to make it expensive and scary enough that I settle or give up. Caleb ran his hands through his hair. That's how corporate legal strategy works. Bury the little guy in paperwork until he runs out of money or energy. So what do? We fight. Carefully. With good lawyers who know what they're doing. Caleb looked at his son. But it means things might get harder before they get better. More stress, more uncertainty. I need you to be okay with that. I'm okay with it if you are. I don't know if I am. Evan was quiet for a moment. Mom used to say the hardest fights are usually the ones worth fighting, because if they were easy, someone else would have already won them. Caleb felt his throat tighten. Sarah had said that during one of the worst stretches of her treatment. When the insurance company denied coverage for experimental therapy, when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do, when giving up would have been easier than keeping hope alive. She'd fought anyway, not because she thought she'd win, but because the fight itself mattered. Your mom was smarter than me, Caleb said. She was smarter than everyone. That's why she married you. She knew you'd need the help. Caleb laughed despite everything. She did say that once, almost those exact words. See? Smart. Evan stood up. I'm going to bed. But Dad, whatever you decide to do about Titan, about Prometheus, about all of it, I'm with you, even if we end up broke and living in the car. We're not going to live in the car. But if we did, at least it's got a cool engine. Evan went to his room, leaving Caleb alone with contracts and choices and the weight of trying to do right by technology that deserved better than corporate warfare. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Talked to 3 people still at Prometheus. All say culture actually has improved. Leadership's different. R&D gets real budgets now. Engineers have more autonomy. Not perfect, but better. Thought you should know. Then another text from Raymond. Attorney reviewed Prometheus proposal. Terms are solid, no obvious traps. Still recommends thorough due diligence, but first impression is positive. And finally, Patricia. Titan's claim is weak but annoying. We can fight it, but I recommend letting me handle all communication. Don't engage directly. They're fishing for information or trying to intimidate you into a quick settlement. Caleb read all 3 messages, then set his phone down and stared at the ceiling. A week ago, he was a janitor with a secret. Today, he was an inventor with a patent, multiple corporate entities circling, legal battles brewing, and decisions that could reshape his entire life. He didn't feel ready for any of it. But then again, he hadn't felt ready to be a widower raising a toddler alone, hadn't felt ready to walk away from his career, hadn't felt ready for any of the hard things life had thrown at him. He'd done them anyway, because ready or not, the world kept moving, and you either moved with it or got left behind. Caleb opened his laptop, pulled up the Prometheus proposal, and started reading it again. Really reading it this time. Every clause, every provision, every promise. Looking for traps, yes, but also looking for possibility. Maybe Jennifer was genuine. Maybe Prometheus had changed. Maybe this was the right path. Or maybe it was another corporate machine waiting to consume what he'd built. Either way, he needed to know. And knowing required diligence, patience, and the willingness to walk away if the terms weren't right. He worked through the night, making notes, highlighting sections to discuss with Patricia and Raymond, building a framework for evaluation. By the time the sun came up, he had a clear picture of what partnering with Prometheus would actually mean. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real meant something in an industry built on promises that evaporated the moment money changed hands. Evan found him still at the table at 7 a.m., surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. Did you sleep at all? Evan asked. Couple hours, maybe. You look terrible. Thanks, you're honest, if nothing else. Caleb stretched, joints popping. But I think I know what I'm going to do. Yeah? Yeah. I'm going to verify everything Jennifer said, let Patricia fight Titan's claim, and if Prometheus checks out, really checks out, no red flags, no hidden traps, I'm going to consider their offer, not accept it, consider it. That's very measured and mature of you. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm proud. Evan poured cereal, sat down. What changed your mind? Nothing changed my mind. I'm just done being paralyzed by fear of making the wrong choice. Every option has risks. The question is which risks I can live with. And you can live with trusting Prometheus, maybe? I can live with verifying whether they're trustworthy and making a decision based on evidence instead of assumptions. Caleb drained his cold coffee. That's not the same as blind trust. Smart. I learned from the best. Mom? You. Evan smiled into his cereal bowl, and Caleb felt something settle in his chest. Not certainty, he'd probably never have that, but direction, purpose, the sense that he was moving toward something instead of just running from everything. His phone rang. Jennifer Tsai, Caleb answered. Ms. Tsai. Mr. Hayes, I hope I'm not calling too early. I wanted to follow up on yesterday's meeting and see if you had any initial questions about the proposal. I have about 100 questions, and I need to verify a lot of what you told me. That's fair. I'd be worried if you didn't. Jennifer sounded like she meant it. What do you need from me? Access to your facilities, your current engineering team, your financial records. I want to see how Prometheus actually operates, not just how you describe it in proposals. Done. I can arrange a facility tour this week, introduce you to our hybrid development team, and provide access to our most recent annual report and R&D budgets. Anything else? References. Engineers who've worked there during the transition, people who left and can speak honestly about why, competitors who've partnered with you. I want the full picture. I'll compile a list and send it over by end of day. Mr. Hayes, I meant what I said yesterday. We're not trying to hide anything. If verification is what you need to feel comfortable, I'll give you whatever access makes sense. Okay, I'll be in touch once I've reviewed everything. Thank you. And Mr. Hayes, I know you're getting pressure from multiple directions. I know Titan's probably already reached out with threats about IP ownership. If there's anything we can do to help with that fight, let me know. We've dealt with them before. We know their playbook. Caleb hadn't mentioned Titan to her. How did you know about that? Because that's what Titan does. They hear about innovation touching their old territory, and they send their attorneys to rattle cages. It's intimidation, not legitimate legal action. We can help you fight it if you want. Why would you do that? Because if Titan succeeds in claiming your technology, this partnership becomes impossible. And because it's the right thing to do. Jennifer paused. We owe you, Caleb. All of you who worked on Titan's projects and got screwed when we bought them out. I can't undo that, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again. She hung up. Caleb sat there holding his phone, trying to figure out if he believed her or if he was being played by someone very good at saying the right things. Evan was watching him. What do you think? I think, Caleb said slowly, that people are complicated, and sometimes they mean well even when they work for companies that don't. The question is whether her good intentions matter enough when the company's incentives push the other direction. That's a very diplomatic non-answer. It's an honest non-answer. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. And that, Caleb realized, was the real decision. Not whether to trust Jennifer or Prometheus or any of them, but whether to engage seriously with the possibility that things could work out, or to protect himself by assuming the worst and walking away. Sarah would have told him to engage. To verify, yes, but to stay open to the possibility that people and institutions could change. So that's what he'd do. Carefully, methodically, with every protection in place. But he'd do it. The Prometheus facility was 2 hours south of Seattle, sprawling across what used to be farmland before the tech boom consumed everything. Jennifer met Caleb and Marcus at the security gate, visitor badges already prepared, and walked them through a campus that looked more like a university than a manufacturing plant. We rebuilt this 3 years ago, Jennifer said as they passed between buildings connected by glass walkways. The old facility was designed for traditional assembly line production. This one's built for innovation, rapid prototyping, testing labs, collaborative spaces where engineers actually talk to each other instead of working in silos. Marcus was taking it all in with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen too many corporate facades. Expensive renovation. Very. The board almost killed it. But the new CEO convinced them that if we wanted to compete with Tesla and the other disruptors, we needed infrastructure that supported disruption, not just manufacturing. Jennifer stopped at a building marked R&D 7. This is where the hybrid team works. I told them you were coming. They're excited, which is either a good sign or they're very good actors. The lab was chaos in the best way. Engineers hunched over workstations, prototype components scattered across tables, whiteboards covered in equations and sketches. A woman in her 30s looked up when they entered, wiped grease off her hands, and walked over. You must be Caleb Hayes. I'm Dr. Sarah Ortiz, lead engineer on hybrid development. She shook his hand firmly. I've heard a lot about you. Probably exaggerated, Caleb said. Probably undersold based on what Jennifer showed us. What? Sarah gestured to a workstation where a partial engine assembly sat like a failed experiment. This is where we've been stuck for 18 months. Thermal management at the coupling junction. We can't get the heat dissipation efficient enough without adding weight that defeats the whole efficiency purpose. Marcus leaned in, studying the assembly. You're using aluminum heat sinks. We've tried aluminum, copper, composite materials. Everything either weighs too much or doesn't transfer heat fast enough. That's because you're thinking of heat as the problem instead of using it as part of the solution, Caleb said. He hadn't meant to speak, but the engineering problem pulled the words out. You're trying to dissipate heat away from the system. Instead, recapture it and redirect it to preheat the combustion intake, reduces fuel consumption, and solves your thermal issue simultaneously. Sarah blinked. We considered that approach, but the feedback loop complexity made it seem impossible to control. It's not impossible. It just requires integrated software that adjusts in real time based on load and temperature differentials. I can show you the algorithms if you want. The room had gone quiet. Every engineer was now listening. Sarah looked at Jennifer, then back at Caleb. You'd share that? Just like that? I'm here to verify if partnership makes sense. Can't do that without seeing if we can actually work together. Caleb pulled out his phone, brought up photos of his engine's thermal management system. Here, this is the implementation, not giving you my code, but the architecture's clear enough you can develop your own. Sarah studied the photos like they were ancient scrolls. This is elegant. This is really elegant. It's practical. Elegant's what you call something when you're trying to impress people instead of solving problems. Sarah laughed. I like him. Jennifer, I like him. They spent 3 hours in that lab, Caleb and Marcus walking through technical approaches, Sarah's team asking questions that demonstrated they actually understood the challenges. No corporate doublespeak, no management buzzwords, just engineers talking about engineering the way it was supposed to work. When they finally left, Marcus was quiet until they reached the parking lot. That was real, he said. What happened in there? That was actual collaboration, not performance. Yeah, Caleb agreed. It was. So what does that mean? Caleb watched Jennifer talking on her phone by the entrance, animated conversation with someone who was apparently arguing with her. It means the people doing the work are genuine. Doesn't mean the company is. Not yet. Over the next week, Caleb verified everything. Raymond's attorney confirmed Prometheus's financials were stable. No hidden debt. R&D budgets actually going to R&D instead of executive bonuses. Marcus's contacts corroborated the culture change. Not perfect, still corporate, but significantly better than before. Patricia reviewed the partnership terms 6 different ways and found them surprisingly clean. And Titan's legal claim fell apart under scrutiny. Patricia filed a response brief that systematically demolished every argument their attorneys made, pointing out that Caleb's engine used 0 proprietary Titan information and was developed over a decade after the employment agreement's expiration. Titan's lawyers sent one more threatening letter. Patricia sent back a response that essentially said, "See you in court," and they went silent. They were fishing, Patricia explained over the phone, hoping you'd settle for a quick payout rather than fight. Once they realized you had competent legal representation and a strong case, they backed off. Bullies usually do. Evan was thrilled about that development. You beat Titan without even going to court. That's like winning by forfeit. It's winning by having a good lawyer. Different thing. Still counts. By the end of the second week, Caleb had all the information he needed. Prometheus checked out. Jennifer was genuine. The partnership terms were fair. The risk was manageable. But he still hadn't made a decision. Raymond noticed. They were having coffee. The grind had become unofficial headquarters for Caleb's accidental business venture when Raymond finally asked the question directly. What's stopping you? You've verified everything. The deal's good. What's the hesitation? Caleb stirred his coffee, watching patterns form and dissolve. Once I say yes, it becomes real. Not just technology in my garage, but an actual thing in the world that I can't control completely. And if it goes wrong, if they misuse it or corrupt it or turn it into something I didn't intend, that's on me. That's called impact, Raymond said. Things that matter in the world can be misused. Doesn't mean you should keep them locked away. Sarah used to say something similar. She sounds like she was smart. She was. Too smart for her own good sometimes. Caleb set his spoon down. She wanted me to go back to engineering, kept saying I was wasting my talent mopping floors. But I thought keeping my son fed and safe was more important than building things. And now I'm wondering if she'd think I was being a coward by hesitating. Raymond was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? I've funded 43 startups in my career. Some succeeded, most failed, a few changed industries. And the founders I respected most weren't the ones who moved fast or took crazy risks. They were the ones who thought hard about impact, who cared about how their work would be used. Those companies might have grown slower, but they grew right. He met Caleb's eyes. You're not being a coward. You're being responsible. There's a difference. Doesn't feel different. It never does. But your son's watching how you make this decision. That matters too. Caleb hadn't thought about it that way. Evan had been watching this whole process, seeing his father navigate corporate interest, legal threats, partnership negotiations. Learning by observation how you handled power when you weren't used to having it. That night, Caleb sat down with Evan after dinner and asked him directly, "What do you think I should do? About Prometheus?" Evan looked up from his homework, surprised. "You're asking me? You're part of this. You've been part of it from the beginning. You popped the hood, remember? Started this whole thing. I didn't think you'd actually listen if I answered. Try me." Evan set down his pencil, thought for a moment. "I think you should do it. Not because of money, though money would be nice, but because you built something that could actually help people, and keeping it secret doesn't help anyone. Mom used to talk about how the world needs good people to do hard things, even when they're scared. You're scared, but you're also good at this. So do the hard thing." Caleb felt his throat tighten. "When'd you get so wise?" "I'm 10. I've been wise for months now. You just keep forgetting." "Fair point." The next morning, Caleb called Jennifer. "I want to move forward, but I need 3 non-negotiable conditions in the contract." "I'm listening." "First, I maintain veto power over any design modifications. Not just consultation, actual veto authority. If you want to change my architecture in ways I don't approve, the partnership ends." "Agreed. What else?" "Second, we establish a price cap on vehicles using this technology. I don't want this becoming a luxury item. It needs to be accessible to working people, or it's not worth doing." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "That's going to be harder. Manufacturing costs, dealer margins, profit requirements. There are a lot of factors." "I don't care about the factors. I care about the outcome. Cap the price, or I walk." "What number are you thinking?" $35,000 for the base model. That's below average new car price, which means people can actually afford it. That's aggressive. But let me talk to the board. What's your third condition?" "Credit, real credit. My name on the patents, in the marketing materials, in every conversation about this technology. I don't want to be a footnote. I don't want to disappear into corporate anonymity. If my work's being used, people should know who built it." "Done. That one's easy. We want your name attached. It's part of the redemption story." "I don't care about your redemption story. I care about recognition for work done." "Noted. I'll have our legal team draft an amended agreement with these provisions. Should have it to you within 72 hours. "Good. And Jennifer, if any of these conditions get watered down in the legal language, if there are loopholes or discretionary clauses that undermine them, I'm out. No negotiation." "Understood." "Caleb, I meant what I said. We want this to work right. You're not going to find traps in the contract." She wasn't lying. Patricia reviewed the amended agreement and found it cleaner than most corporate contracts she'd seen. The veto authority was absolute. The price cap was binding. The credit provisions were comprehensive. Raymond's attorney agreed. The terms protected Caleb's interests while giving Prometheus enough latitude to actually manufacture at scale. "This is as good as it gets," Patricia said. "I'd sign it if I were you." Caleb signed it on a Thursday afternoon in Patricia's office, with Marcus and Raymond as witnesses. Jennifer joined via video call, along with Prometheus's CEO and general counsel. The whole thing took 20 minutes. Electronic signatures, digital timestamps, legal language that transformed years of secret work into a partnership worth hundreds of millions of dollars. When it was done, Jennifer smiled from the screen. "Welcome to Prometheus, Caleb. As a partner, not an employee. Let's build something that matters." The CEO, a woman named Margaret Joe, who looked tired but determined, spoke up. "Mr. Hayes, I want to say something on the record. Prometheus made terrible decisions a decade ago. We buried innovation, scattered talented people, chose short-term profit over long-term impact. I can't undo that. But I can make sure we don't repeat it. Your technology gets developed right, or I'll burn this partnership down myself. You have my word. Caleb believed her. Maybe that was naive. Maybe he'd regret it. But in that moment, he believed her. After the call ended, Marcus shook his hand. You did it. You're officially a partner in a major automotive manufacturer. I'm officially terrified. That means you're paying attention. Marcus grinned. But seriously, this is good. This is what was supposed to happen 12 years ago. We're getting a second chance to do it right. Raymond pulled Caleb aside before they left. I'm wiring funds for the full patent application. Patricia says she can file within the month. Once that's approved, you'll have ironclad protection for the next 20 years. You don't have to. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I invested in this partnership, and protecting the IP protects my investment. Business decision, not charity. Still, thank you. Raymond's expression softened. Make something good, Caleb. That's all the thanks I need. The news broke 2 days later. Tech blogs picked it up first, then automotive trade publications, then mainstream media. Former janitor partners with Prometheus Industries to revolutionize hybrid technology. The headlines varied, but the story was the same. Underdog inventor, corporate redemption, technological breakthrough. Caleb's phone exploded with interview requests. He declined most of them, agreed to a few that seemed legitimate. The first interview was with AutoWeek, a journalist who actually understood engineering and asked real questions instead of looking for feel-good sound bites. Do you feel vindicated? The journalist asked, after being overlooked for so long. I don't feel vindicated. I feel anxious. Vindication implies the past matters more than the present. What matters now is whether this technology actually helps people or just becomes another corporate press release that goes nowhere. You don't sound like you trust Prometheus. I trust the engineers I'm working with. The corporation's on probation. Caleb smiled slightly. Big difference. The article ran with the headline, Hayes demands accountability in Prometheus partnership, which was more honest than the usual corporate puff pieces. Jennifer called afterwards. The board wasn't thrilled with your comments about probation. I didn't sign up to make the board feel good. I signed up to build cars. Jennifer laughed. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I liked the interview. Honesty's refreshing. Development moved faster than Caleb expected. Sarah's team integrated his thermal management approach within 3 weeks, achieving efficiency gains that made the prototype viable for production consideration. The software integration took longer. Caleb's algorithms were elegant, but required translation into production-ready code that could handle edge cases and failure modes. Marcus joined the development team officially, hired as a senior consultant with salary and benefits that suggested Prometheus was serious about retention. He and Caleb spent long hours in the lab, refining systems, testing failures, pushing the technology to its limits. This feels like the old days, Marcus said one night, after most of the team had gone home. Before everything got corporate. Just engineers solving problems because the problems were interesting. Except we're getting paid now, Caleb pointed out. Well, yes, that's different, but the energy's the same. 6 months into the partnership, Prometheus presented the first production prototype at an industry conference. Caleb stood backstage while Margaret Jo gave the presentation, explaining the technology in terms executives could understand. When she mentioned his name, when his photo appeared on the screen behind her, the applause was genuine. And I'd like to invite Mr. Hayes to the stage to discuss the engineering innovations directly, Margaret said. Caleb hadn't agreed to this. He gave Jennifer a look that promised retribution later, but walked onto the stage anyway. The crowd was hundreds of people, journalists, competitors, investors, engineers from other companies. I'm not great at presentations, Caleb started. I'm better at building things. But I can tell you this, the system we developed works because it was designed from the ground up to solve real problems for real people, not to hit profit targets or generate press releases. And if you're in this industry and you're not focused on solving actual problems, you're in the wrong business. The applause was louder this time. Afterwards, a dozen engineers wanted to talk to him, asked technical questions, wanted to know how he'd approach specific challenges. Caleb answered them all, because this Talking to other engineers about engineering was what he actually cared about. A younger engineer couldn't be older than 25, waited until everyone else had left. "Mr. Hayes, I just wanted to say thank you. I almost left the industry last year because I thought innovation was dead. Your work proved it's not. That matters." Caleb didn't know how to respond to that. Keep building things, even when it feels pointless, especially then. The engineer nodded and walked away, and Caleb felt something shift. His technology mattered, yes. But maybe what mattered more was showing people that innovation didn't have to die in corporate machinery, that good engineering could survive if you fought hard enough to protect it. The first production vehicles rolled off the assembly line 14 months after the partnership began. Caleb insisted on being there, watching the automated systems integrate components he'd designed in a garage with hand tools. The car that emerged, sleek, efficient, affordable, at $34,900, looked nothing like his rusted Challenger. But under the hood, where it mattered, it was exactly what he'd built. Sarah handed him the keys to the first unit off the line. "You should be the one to test drive it." Caleb drove it around the facility's test track. Evan in the passenger seat, both of them quiet as the hybrid system switched seamlessly between electric and combustion. The car handled like a dream, accelerated smoothly, showed the kind of engineering integration that only happened when people cared about the work. "It's perfect," Evan said. "It's pretty good," Caleb corrected. "There's still improvements to make." "You're never satisfied, are you?" "If I was satisfied, we'd still be driving a rusted Challenger that barely ran." "I liked that Challenger." "So did I, still do." Caleb pulled into the parking area. "But this is better. For what it's supposed to do, this is better." The Challenger was still in Caleb's garage, still looking like rust and primer and neglect. He'd been offered absurd money for it. Collectors wanted the original prototype. Museums wanted to display it. He turned them all down. "That car's not for sale," he told Evan. "That's where this started. That's where you handed me tools when you were 6 and learned how things worked. That stays with us." Evan didn't argue. He understood. The reviews came in over the following months. Automotive journalists praised the efficiency, the performance, the price point that made hybrid technology accessible. Sales exceeded projections. Prometheus's stock rose. Royalty checks started arriving in amounts that made Caleb's head spin. He paid Marcus back first. Every dollar with interest Marcus didn't want, but accepted anyway. Then he paid Patricia for the legal work, Raymond for the patent costs, everyone who'd invested in him when he was just a janitor with a secret. And then he sat down with Evan and asked, "What do we do with the rest?" "College fund," Evan suggested. "Already set up. What else? You could buy a house, a nice one." "Could. Do you want a nice house?" Evan thought about it. "I kind of like our apartment. It's where we've always lived." "Me too." Caleb looked at the royalty statement. "What if we helped other people? Engineers who can't afford to develop their ideas, kids who want to study engineering but don't have money for school. What if we made that possible?" Evan's eyes lit up. "Like a scholarship fund?" "More than that. A whole program. Funding, mentorship, resources. Help people build things that matter without having to give up their lives to corporations first." Mom would have liked that. Yeah, she would have. They established the Hayes Innovation Fund 6 months later. Small at first, just enough to fund 3 engineering students annually and provide grant money for 2 independent inventors. But it grew, and Caleb made it clear that recipients had one obligation: build things that actually help people, not just things that make money. Marcus joined the fund's advisory board. So did Sarah Ortiz and a handful of other engineers who remembered what it felt like to care about work beyond profit margins. 2 years after signing with Prometheus, Caleb was invited to give a lecture at MIT. He almost declined. Public speaking still terrified him, but Evan convinced him to go. "You've got a story people need to hear," Evan said. "Stop hiding." So Caleb stood in front of 200 engineering students and told them the truth. About walking away from his career, about building in secret, about the corporate battles and legal threats and moments he almost gave up. "Here's what I learned," he told them. "Innovation doesn't require permission. It requires commitment. And if you build something that actually matters, if you do the work right and protect it properly, the world eventually has to pay attention. Not because you're special, but because good engineering is rare enough that when it appears, it can't be ignored forever." During the Q&A, a student asked, "Would you do anything differently?" Caleb thought about it. "I'd start keeping better documentation from day one. Would have saved me legal headaches, but otherwise? No. The path I took taught me things I wouldn't have learned any other way. And it meant my son grew up watching someone build something from nothing. That matters more than career advancement or early success." Evan was sitting in the front row, trying not to look proud and failing completely. After the lecture, students swarmed Caleb with questions, stories about their own projects, ideas they were developing in secret. He listened to all of them, offered advice where he could, and realized this was what impact actually looked like. Not just building things, but inspiring other people to build. The drive back to Seattle took 7 hours. Evan spent most of it on his laptop, working on college applications even though he was only 13. He'd skipped 2 grades and was already being recruited by engineering programs. "Where do you want to go?" Caleb asked. "MIT's nice, but Stanford's got better fabrication facilities, and Carnegie Mellon's got that robotics program I've been following." "All good choices." "I've got 3 years to decide, plenty of time." Evan closed his laptop. "Dad, you know how you always said you walked away from engineering to raise me?" "Yeah?" "You didn't walk away. You just changed what you were building. You built me instead of engines, and I turned out okay, I think." Caleb's vision blurred. He kept his eyes on the road. "You turned out better than okay. So did the engine. Eventually. Maybe that's the point. Good things take time, and you don't have to choose between family and work if you're smart about integration." "When'd you figure that out?" "I've always known it. Just took you a while to catch up." They drove home through the night, the Challenger's hybrid system purring smoothly, carrying a father and son who'd built something together without realizing that's what they were doing. 3 years later, the Hayes Innovation Fund had grown to support 50 students annually and had funded 12 independent inventors whose work ranged from agricultural technology to medical devices. Marcus ran the day-to-day operations, Caleb handled the engineering mentorship, and Evan, now at Stanford studying mechanical engineering and artificial intelligence, helped evaluate applications during summer breaks. The Prometheus partnership had produced 3 vehicle models, all successful, all affordable, all built on Caleb's architecture. He still consulted on major design decisions, still had veto authority. He'd exercised twice when they tried to cut costs in ways that compromised performance. And the original Challenger still sat in his garage, rust and primer and secrets, exactly as it had always been. Caleb would go out there sometimes, late at night when he couldn't sleep, and just sit in the driver's seat, remembering when building was simple, when success was just getting the engine to turn over, when his biggest concern was having enough money for parts. Simpler times, harder times, but honest times. Evan found him there one night during winter break. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." About how weird life is. 4 years ago, I was mopping floors and hiding from everyone. Now I'm giving lectures and running a foundation and partnering with corporations. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choices. Evan sat in the passenger seat, same spot he'd occupied 1,000 times. "Do you regret any of it?" "No. But I miss the simplicity sometimes. When it was just you and me in this car and nothing else mattered. It's still just you and me. The rest is just details." Evan looked at the engine bay, closed now, but both of them knew every component underneath. "Mom would be proud of you, of what you built. Not just the engine, everything. She'd be proud of you too, probably more." "Well, yeah, obviously. I'm exceptional," Evan grinned. "But seriously, Dad, you did good. You took something that could have been buried or stolen or corrupted, and you protected it. You made it mean something. That's not nothing." "It's something," Caleb agreed. "Still not sure exactly what, but it's something." They sat in comfortable silence, the garage cold but familiar, the car beneath them holding years of late nights and small victories and the kind of work that only mattered because they'd decided it did. Eventually, Evan spoke again. "You know what I think the real achievement is? Not the technology or the partnership or the money. It's that you showed people you don't have to choose between being a good parent and doing work that matters. You can be both. You just have to be stubborn enough to refuse when people tell you to pick one. I was never very good at following instructions." No, you really weren't. Lucky for both of us. Caleb started the engine just to hear it run. The hybrid system engaged smoothly, electric motors humming alongside combustion, power flowing through components he'd designed and built and protected until the world had no choice but to acknowledge they mattered. Outside, Seattle was dark and quiet. Inside the garage, a father and son sat in a car that looked worthless and contained everything. And somewhere, in some hospital or courtroom or corporate office, Sarah's voice echoed the truth she'd always known. Beautiful things needed to be in the world, needed to be used and challenged and proved worthy. Hiding them kept them safe, but made them meaningless. Caleb had stopped hiding. The world was better for it. Messier, more complicated, harder to navigate, but better. And in the end, that's what engineering was really about. Not perfection, not certainty, just making things a little better than you found them, one component at a time, until eventually you looked back and realized you'd built something that mattered. The engine purred. Evan smiled. And Caleb Hayes, former janitor and current revolutionary, put the car in gear and backed out of the garage, ready for whatever came next. Because good work was never really finished. It just evolved, adapted, grew into new challenges. And if you were lucky, you got to keep building with people who mattered, creating things that made the world slightly less broken than when you started. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.